Wow, 16 people before we've even started. Jesus Christ. I have to thank you all because this is potentially the most shared podcast that I've had. Like, everyone seems to be going crazy. And I'd be flattered, but clearly you're not all here for me. We've dropped down to 12. Point proven. But I'll go through the chat quickly and then I know everyone wants to get into this one, so we'll just go through this really quickly. So, hello, Mr. Scandinavian Guanas. Hello, Michael. Hello, Parker. How are you doing, my friend? Hello, Fee. Hello, Paul's Monitors. Wow, lucky for us to have such a celebrity in the chat. Hello, Tree. How are you doing? Hello, Gary. How are you doing? Hello, One. I'm not sure if I've seen you before, so thank you for stopping in. What's up, Mike? I'm glad that you're here. Hello, Dan. Who else is here? Hello, Rick. How are we doing? What's good, Ramirez? How are we doing? We have a moderator now. Yeah, why not? If any of you misbehave, you're getting your ass kicked. 21 people in chat. What is good? Can we? I don't know. I forget what my record is, but can we beat the record? Riddler is here. Probably not for long, but how are you doing, Riddler? Here we are. Hello, Stuart. How are you doing, my friend? Thank you for stopping in. Mr. MJH Exotics in the building. I've said hello to Dan already. Hello, Jonas. How are you doing, my friend? Thank you for stopping in. Jesus Christ, the chat's blowing up. Hello, Touch. How are we doing? Hello, Logan. How are we doing? How are we doing? How are we doing? Right, everyone. We're just going to get straight into the... Oh, there was a swear. Did I swear? Oh, well. Right, let me think. Everyone, let me concentrate. I haven't got it shared on here, but oh well. Shout out to the Bug Factory. Great guys and girls over there. Go and check them out for all your live food wants and needs. If you use Paul's -monitors-5 at the checkout, you get 5% off your first order, and they're pretty much the cheapest place I personally have found online for bugs in the UK, as well as worldwide shipping for the sustainably growing mealworm pods, which are pretty cool, and I'm contemplating converting them into isopod pods. Also great for kids. My son loves sifting through. And then the second sponsor of the podcast, of course, is you beautiful lot. Thank you, everyone on the Patreon that supports me financially and helps me keep the lights on over here. The podcast will be going to all streaming platforms soon. It is in motion. I have finally plucked up the courage and decided to pay the price because obviously it's not free. So I'm going to get to the chat for the last 6 comments, and then we are going to Riddler. I will get Michael to kick you. Anyway, right. Enough of that. So everyone knows, 26 people in chat, everyone knows today's guest is Mr. Chris Applin.
Hello.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, all good.
Good. Hello, Serenity Dragons. Thank you for stopping in. Right, guys. I'm going to do my best to come to the chat just quickly, but if there are questions, then, and everyone remind me that there's questions, because we have got some exclusive stuff to share with you a bit later on in the podcast. And when we are doing that, I will no longer be able to see the screen. So get your questions in. I will dip to your questions. Make the most of getting Chris here. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening, mate, for joining us. But we'll go straight into it. If I can find the questions on my phone, we'll just go straight into the quickfire questions once I can find them. Here they are. So I know you're a listener, so thank you very much. So I don't know if you've got your answers prepared or not, but here we go. Snakes or lizards?
Lizards. Even though I'm repping snakes tonight with my t-shirt, but yeah, lizards. Just better to keep. In my opinion, you just get more out of lizards. Snakes are cool. You can't take it away. It's a super hard question for the first one, Paul. Cheers for
that. They don't get easier. I've added a new question as well, just for you. It will stay in for every guest, but it's the first time it's aired tonight. Money or time?
Time.
Mentally strong or physically strong?
Mentally strong.
Wild caught good, wild caught bad?
That's a difficult one. I mean, wherever possible, I think it's got to be captive bred all the way. But yeah, we can't do what we do without, obviously, firstly getting the wild caught stuff in, and then, for example, for new blood and stuff like that, it's really important. Just needs to be sustainable. I mean, the stuff that's coming in that shouldn't be coming in these days is infuriating, really. Royals, Boss monitors, Nile monitors. That should have stopped ages ago. So yeah, I mean, wild caught good in some cases, but if you can go captive bred, go captive bred.
I agree. Pro snake rack or no snake rack?
I've never owned a snake rack. They're good for hatchlings, but that's as far as you can go with them, in my opinion. Yeah, reptile keeping is all about sort of providing options for things. I just don't think you can do it in a snake rack.
Arid species or tropical species?
I always say subtropical when you say this on your podcast, but if I had to pick one, probably that's hard.
So what would you class as a subtropical species? Would you class, for example, tree monitors as tropical or subtropical?
Yeah, but they're tropical. But I'm thinking there's a lot of Audatria in Australia that are in that subtropical range. A lot of monitors that sort of fall in between. Like I said, I've herped Australia a lot, and a lot of my favourite species are what you sort of consider subtropical. I think to keep tropical, I'm going to go for.
This is the fee question, and she's picked for you moles or badgers.
Badgers. Yeah, moles are cool, but I think badgers are cool.
Big reptiles or small reptiles?
Small reptiles. Yeah, small reptiles.
Big monitors, dwarf monitors.
Ooh, middle-sized monitors.
I would class tree monitors as dwarf, technically.
Yeah, for sure, dwarfs then. Yeah. I mean, they're both awesome, obviously. Salvador are amazing. Water monitors also amazing. But yeah, I think you can just do more. If it's from the keeping side of stuff, I think you just do provide a bit better for the smaller stuff.
Instagram famous or YouTube famous?
Probably the same answer as everyone else. YouTube for the money. I have been trying to grow the Instagram, as you know, like you've helped out with that.
30 people, go and follow Chris right now.
Cheers, guys. That'd be awesome. So yeah, I think Instagram's really cool for sort of showing stuff off. YouTube just seems like hard work. I don't think I'd ever get into the YouTube myself, and sort of commend anyone that's doing it. That's pretty cool.
I agree. It's very hard. It takes a lot of time. Right. The most important question of them all. Pro Crocs, no Crocs.
Yeah, I haven't got a problem with Crocs. I think they're pretty cool. I was talking to Alicia, my girlfriend, about them. Yeah, they seem to look comfy. That's what I can say on them. Yeah.
I had a random guy at a petrol station today compliment me on my Crocs. So there you go.
I might be a convert one day. I might have to
you
take
need
the
them.
dip.
You're a monitor keeper. You need them. It's the rules. Crocs sponsor me. Feisty or tame?
Feisty for sure. Yeah.
Wild types or morphs?
I mean, for a lot of my reptile keeping, I was into the morphs. I played the whole morph game with carpet pythons, but nowadays it's just wild types. I've sort of converted back the other way. I think some of the morphs are so deleterious, like the jags and stuff like that, which I have kept in the past. Can't be a hypocrite on that. They're amazingly stunning animals, but I don't think you can beat like a good wild type. There's so much variation between species and localities that, yeah, nowadays it would be wild types. But I have been a morph guy, so.
And then the last question, which is a new question, it used to be cricket experience, but it's changed. In your opinion, what is the best pet monitor?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. There's a couple. Aki's probably the obvious one. That's a good one to go for. Gil and I are awesome as well. I mean, yeah, I don't think you can really pit the two against each other. They're both equally as awesome to me. I mean, the Gil and I are smaller than what the Akis are getting, so you can do a lot more with them in that regard. Temperament's amazing on them. The Akis potentially look a bit different, look a bit more attractive. The Gil and I can sort of blend out, especially the sort of the lines we've got in the UK. But some of the Australian Gil and I are just unreal, the big bands and stuff like that. But yeah, either one of those, I'd say Gil and I, or Akis, which is sort of the obvious one. I don't know why more people aren't keeping Akis compared to Beardies, because Akis to Beardies, it's Akis all day long, I think.
I'm going to use this as a shameless plug. I've got like 60 eggs in the incubator, guys. If you want Akis, message me.
Awesome.
To be fair, I agree. I've got a Beardie. The beardie's pretty cool. We like our little beardie, but for interaction level, for a similar size enclosure, for similar lighting requirements,
They're
Ackies are
just easier. Like if you're keeping bearded dragons properly, which not a lot of people do, Ackies are just easier. A beardie's quite a lot of work with the diet and stuff like that. It's pretty hard work to do them properly. I personally think compared to the Ackies.
No, I agree. Well, just on that subject then, the species that you currently are working with.
So currently, got quite a small collection to what I've had in the past, but keeping Risengary, which is the yellow tree monitor, or I like to call them the Mizzle Island tree monitor, the black tree monitor, or Aru Island tree monitor, Macraei, Affenbergi, which is the peacock monitors, which is sort of super underrated species, and we're quite lucky to have those in the UK, I think, because we nearly lost them at one point. And then obviously the Mitchell I've got as well, which have been pretty recent. It's cool to get them going. I think that's it. Oh, I've got one Gilleneye, one male Gilleneye.
Okay, cool.
Just an oddball. And then a couple of Madu Island retics, which are like the super dwarf retics. And then I've got a single Clastolepus, which is like a Moluccan scrub python. Like, really need to get paired up because we're just going to lose those. I mean, they're super, super hard to breed. Not many people do it. I think less than probably 10 people have bred those worldwide. But yeah, I've just got an odd female. They were super, super common. And nobody wanted anything to do with them. You could get them for like £200, but now they're like £4,000. It's just insane. But they're a cool species.
So on that then, because I have this comment quite a lot, because a lot of people go 5, 6, 7 years ago, let's just say, for example, blue tree monitors, or let's say Jobiensis, peach throat monitors, everywhere, Indicus, everywhere, or tree monitors, everywhere. No one bred them because we took it all for granted. Yeah. And now there's a select pocket of a few of us doing a few different things.
Yeah.
Why do you think species almost go extinct as it is in the hobby? And when I say extinct, for example, like you say with the Affenbergi, if no one bred them, obviously now we're outside the European Union getting new ones. So why do you think that is, that people don't bother buckling down with these niche species?
I think they do once they're not available. It's like this thing we've got in the hobby. I mean, Affenbergi were coming in quite regularly, but once they stop, sort of the way it works with the quotas, if they do less quotas on them, basically they might start with like 100 of them, but if they're not exporting that many out, the quotas actually drop. I don't know if it's each year, but I don't quite know how it works. For like, say those Clastolepus, they were up, and now I think that the quota for them is like 25 that is allowed to be exported, because nobody wanted them at the time. And then the links for these places of getting the wild caught stuff originally, that can stop. I mean, if there's one guy collecting Affenbergi on Rotty Island and he stops, that's that gone basically, unless someone goes over there and makes the connection again. If they're not being bred, that could be it. So there's like a time frame, and I think the problem is with this time frame is we think it's going to be there forever. I sort of remember early 2000s going to Ham and seeing literally hundreds of tree monitors on the firm's table, which is like a French importer. They've got a shop, and you could literally pick between any of them, and you sort of have it in your head, I won't get those today because I'll be able to get them next month, next year, whatever. And then all of a sudden it stops, and you just not be able to get these species anymore. And then that's when people jump on them. Instead of jumping on them first, when they're available and starting to get captive bred, it seems that we have to have them sort of nearly go extinct in the hobby before anyone cares about them. So I think that's the issue with that.
So on that then, because obviously a lot of times you get this, not you, but people like who have the niche species are gatekeepers. You're gatekeeping these species. And I have said it a few times on the podcast. Before I was in the hobby, as an outsider looking in, it did seem like sometimes with these rarer tree monitors, you couldn't get them unless you knew somebody. Now, I know why now, and I'll elaborate my thoughts and feelings in a second after I get your answer. But what's your opinion on that idea that you're potentially classed as, not you, but again, people hoarding, for example, me with mangroves? Paul, you're a gatekeeper. You've got bloody 6. Like, what's your opinion on people calling people gatekeepers? And do you think being a gatekeeper and having a small knit community to trade bloodlines and stuff is more valuable, or do you think we should open the floodgates and allow people in?
I think that's quite recent, because I'm looking back when this stuff was available. It's only when it becomes not available, and then the people that probably get annoyed that they bought into the project or whatever it was at that time, and now they sort of feel you only want to be interested now because you can't get it and it's become rare. Whether that's people just wanted to show off on Instagram or whatever it is, where these people have been working hard when they were common and still putting the effort in. It sort of comes down to that, and then the people that having success with it obviously invested in that project. So for someone completely new, say like Boma and stuff like that, there's so few of them that people want to trade the bloodlines, and if you're being successful with them, it makes more sense to give it to other people that are successful rather than risk it on sort of someone that's not. I don't see it as gatekeeping so much. It's just a lot of these species, once they become bred in captivity, are offered to everyone else. It's just that initial sort of few that sort of weans it out, if you see what I mean.
No, I 100% agree. So basically, where my opinion falls nowadays is, let's just say, when I captive breed Indicus, I don't really want to sell them to the public. One, I thought there's a market, but two, I would like to try and find someone a bit like myself who's super passionate about the said species, and I'd rather just give them the mangroves rather than sell to Mr. Smith, who just wants a pet mangrove. But then at the same time, I almost have an obligation, because outside of myself and one other person, to my knowledge, there might be two, but I'm thinking of one person. You're probably thinking of the same person. There's only two of us really doing Indicus complex, in the sense of Indicus. So between me and said person, we need to try and pull our trousers up and get it sorted, and then we can try and hopefully be like, if there's anyone that needs one, come to me or said person. I don't know if he wants me to name him, so I won't. I don't like naming people, but positively good things about said person. But do you know what? I saw a post on Facebook today, and I forget the pet shop, but a pet shop posted, it was like something like, I don't know how true it is, but I think they said 200,000 Xanthomatogus, so a bosque monitor, come in and every year. And that blew my mind. And there's a guy in the UK that is breeding, or was breeding, bosque monitors, and he wasn't even pricing them ridiculous. And people weren't buying them because you could buy a wild caught one for 40 quid rather than paying like 100, 150 for the captive bred, and people weren't supported, so he doesn't breed them anymore. And it's that to me is so sad, because we should be stopping, like you said at the start, we should be stopping these wild caught imports. There's only a niche amount of people that can correctly care for a bosque monitor. Just get on his waiting list and just wait, you know?
You're going to get such a better animal if it's captive bred. I mean, it's just worlds apart from captive bred to wild caught with absolutely everything. And it's just that problem with the hobby again. Until people are told, oh, you can't get them anymore, and then you'd be inundated with people. As soon as that shipment or whatever, the export stopped, I'm sure you'd have a waiting list waiting for people. But when people have got this easy, cheaper option, they just don't seem to put two and two together and get the captive bred ones, which are going to be way more successful with. Wild caught is hard. I've had a lot of wild caught stuff in my time, and every single one is so much hard work compared to the captive bred ones. But yeah, I think that, not with the gatekeeping stuff, but I think that's probably the best way for it to go. If there's people that are concentrating on getting them successfully bred and keeping them successfully sort of work together, and then they become available to the public. So it's not really gatekeeping, it's sort of getting enough together, and then eventually it trickles down.
I agree. I'll be honest, I used to look in, like I say, I'll be honest, there's no point in lying. I used to look out, looking in, and I'd be like, oh, Jesus Christ, it seems so unobtainable. But I think my advice for said person who's pulled 4 years ago, don't get bitter about it. Almost prove your salt, prove your worth to these people. And as I found, the community are welcoming with open arms. But you can't come in, and this is going to sound horrible, but you can't come in as a nobody and expect to have everything. Because like you say, a lot of people have I've put 3 years into Indicus, into the UK, regularly now successfully having eggs. And if someone just expects me to like do certain stuff for them, I'm like, well, hang on, I've put all the legwork in. No one else has done it. So I'm happy to help a select few people, but it's one of those things.
It's too early in that stage at the moment where there's not captive bred ones that you've bred or said other person's bred to make available. So you just have to bide your time, or sort of risk yourself with the wild caught stuff, which can be detrimental. And sometimes it's better those species go into people that are already working with them. I see how it is on the other side. I mean, like you said, it can be unattainable, and it seems to be you have to spend a vast amount of money, not with the indicus, but with like the true monitors and stuff like that. You have to spend a vast amount of money to get in on that level. But everything, once it starts getting bred, no matter what, the price comes to a reasonable level, and everyone's able to work with them as they should be allowed to. But yeah, some of this stuff is hard. You know what I mean? The wild caught stuff is difficult to get going, and if it can go to someone that's already sort of halfway there, I personally think that's probably a better way to go.
Yeah, I agree. We've got first question for you. How many Affenbergi do you have?
Just 1.1. Yeah, they were bred by Dawn Rep. She's doing super good with them. She managed to get some from Europe, and I think she's probably the only person breeding them in the UK at the moment. I know a few have gone out, but yeah, they're super underrated, amazingly beautiful species, and literally we were right on the edge of losing them. I think if Dawn hadn't got those ones from Europe, we wouldn't have them. As far as I can aware, I know there's a few Timors and stuff that are about, but pure Affenbergi and not crossed ones. She did well there. She's got it at the right time and then put in the effort and the work to get them going, and she's doing really well with them. So that's cool.
I nearly got some off her a couple of years ago, and then I went down the Timorensis route myself, rather than the Affenbergi.
That's another one we've nearly lost. Almost. I remember Timors coming in; they were like £70, and just nobody bothers with them. But yeah, the difficult thing is people crossbreeding them with the Affenbergi. I wish we hadn't done that. I know there's a few about that are a bit dubious, so it's difficult in that sense. So yeah, I'd like there to be like sort of two lines, but I can't think of anyone.
I know a lady with eggs. Timor eggs. I can't say. I don't know if they're pure. I don't know.
That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah.
Her female came from me. Obviously, I didn't breed it, but I had 4. The trio are elsewhere, and then a lone small female. She got eggs from this year. They'll be due soon, actually. If I don't know how they're getting on, and again, I don't know the bloodline, so I'm not going to try and claim that I do because I don't.
Michael's got your ones now, hasn't he? Timors.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, we have said it on here before. So
he's posted that. I haven't outed anyone there.
No.
It's just difficult. I think even he's having a bit of trouble.
77 Timors. Back in the day, I remember like seeing like peach throat monitors for like fucking £195, and now I can't find a male. Well, I can find a male, but I can't find youngsters anywhere. But yeah, it is what it is.
And back then, I don't think we could even get peacocks. When we were getting the Timors for £70, it was. I don't know if they'd even been described then. They might have been described, the peacock monitors, but it was just Timors coming in, and then they did look like Timors. They were proper Timor monitors, and then we got the Affenbergi in, which unfortunately sort of people just started crossing them. But like I said, I don't know if they were even described then as different. They were just prettier Timors, basically.
Timors. It's similar to like leopard geckos. Like they came in as like one thing, and now they're like 5 different subspecies. But
exactly.
Crossed. That
I remember leopard geckos with spots, which is pretty far back.
Well, just quickly on that, because you were just telling me off air. So if you'd like to share your background on how you got into reptiles, I think that could be quite interesting for people. Yeah,
so I was pretty lucky. I had a really supportive mum that was into animals anyway. My first reptile was a corn snake, but what she did before I was allowed this corn snake was bought a book on corn snakes and said, basically, you're not allowed this corn snake until you read this book, and I'm going to ask you questions on it. So I've read this book religiously pretty much every day. I could probably tell you every single word in that book, let alone just questions on corn snakes. And then we went and got this corn snake. Shortly after a couple of years, maybe, I got my first lizard, which was a leopard gecko, which had spots, as they all did back then. And then it was a weird chain of events, really. I was super lucky. We had a shop called Aztec Reptiles in Cheltenham, where I'm from, which was owned by Ty Milsom, who people probably won't know anymore, but he was sort of pretty legendary at the time, and Dawn from Dawn Rep. They owned that shop together. And we'd go around to different reptile shops sort of every weekend. My mum would take me around just to get sort of my fix of There wasn't much back then. There wasn't any social media, obviously. This was 1998 to sort of 2000. And so the only chance you'd get to see different reptiles basically was going to different shops. So I was super lucky because Aztec was way ahead of its time. I mean, Dawn and Ty had a business called Nature Rep, which is basically everything we're doing now, but sort of 20 years ago. So all like bioactive stuff. They were bringing in different seed pods and all this stuff. Everything in the shop was set up. It wasn't like fully bioactive, but everything was naturalistic, waterfalls, the whole works. And the species they had in there, I mean, like green mambas, frill dragons, yeah, just absolutely everything. Some of the first python species in there, weird little geckos that I can't even remember now. Anyway, so we were going to this shop sort of religiously, sort of every weekend, every other weekend. There was a guy in there called Mad Bob, we called him, which best way I can describe him was basically like a UK Steve Irwin. He was like super passionate, but like pretty crazy. And he was like just a wealth of knowledge on stuff. He obviously saw my passion for it. I was probably about 12 or 13 then, and I would come in, reading all these books, coming in with all these Latin names, and he was like, "Oh my God, you need to you need to come in here and start working for us," basically. And he offered me a Saturday job, so I worked that Saturday job religiously every single weekend from the age of sort of 12. By 14, I was running that shop basically. 14, 15, I was there, the only Saturday boy there, which was really good because it sort of curbs your addiction, as we all have these reptiles. We were getting all different species in. I seen the first Gillanai there, first Ackies when they were like £500 each, which is just crazy. First Tristis, they actually bred the first Tristis orientalis, which I think are completely lost again to the hobby now. But true Tristis orientalis back then that they got from Europe. Anyway, that went on sort of to the age of 17. Then I was offered a shop, just from a friend that owned one, basically, just a little shop in a garden centre. So this is what I wanted to do, basically. All at school and everything, I couldn't concentrate because I was always reading a reptile book or researching some sort of reptile. So I was never going to be anything too academic. And obviously had all the knowledge. So me and my mum actually went into business and bought that shop. Had that for 2 years, to about 2008. And then we bought a bigger shop, which was sort of the undoing of ourselves. Unfortunately, it was amazing to have this shop. It was about 3,000 square feet or square meters. Can't remember what it was now. A big shop anyway. And we had all my stuff breeding in there, had a separate room for breeding and stuff. Unfortunately, that was a sort of time where the internet reptile sort of side took over. People were just coming into the shop, get the prices on stuff. Well, we just couldn't compete, basically. We had loads of overheads, obviously, with such a big shop, all the electricity bills and everything. People were coming in with a bulb for like £2 when we were selling it for £4. So just couldn't compete. And that sort of led us to shutting the shop down, basically. So yeah, I've been pretty lucky throughout my life. Like I said, that corn snake pretty much changed my life. It was from there onwards. I mean, I've been super lucky. I was just lucky having that Aztec there at the time. I mean, there's a guy called Pete Blake, I think you met at the show.
Yeah.
He was really instrumental. He was big into his venomous, so I could start handling venomous snakes and stuff like that. He was well into his Latin names. So I was learning all these Latin names. It sort of just held me in good stead, really, to have these sort of mentors around at that time, and then sort of enabled me to get where I am today.
Yeah, that's really that's I think that's the sort of thing I know. I speak for myself. Like I can relate a lot to because I think you're only a couple of years older than me. So I can relate a lot to the riding around. Like every Saturday or Sunday, I forget, but every Saturday or Sunday, I think it might have been Sunday, but either way, it'd be my mum, my dad, me and my brother. We would drive to basically Waterlooville, and there was a little tiny reptile shop in Waterlooville called, I forget now. Either way, this was going back years. And every single Sunday, we would get KFC with the family and then park outside the reptile shop. I would go around the reptile shop whilst my family were eating KFC. And then I had until they'd finished like the KFC, then I had to come back out. And I remember seeing Orientalis in there, and they were, I think they were £150 for a trio. This is like a core memory of mine. And I was probably about 13. So this was going back, well, 16 years ago. And I remember begging my parents to like let me have these little things, and I was like, "Oh, they're so cool! They're so cool! Oh my god!" And my parents were like, "No, no, no! You're not having them! You're not having them!" And then I remember seeing like a Bosk monitor again in a reptile shop, and I remember being like, "Oh my god! I need it! I need it!" And it was like a pancake, and I remember it. I was probably only about 8 or 10. I was like, "I need it! I need it! I need it!" So I relate a lot to that, but I never really had the mentors. Like literally, I was like, "Oh." My parents, I was like, all right, I want to be a herpetologist. I want to work with reptiles. And my dad was like, nah, go and be a Sparky. I was like, okay, Dad. And then, here we are.
I mean, the guy that owned that shop, Tayo was speaking of, he was pretty legendary at that point with what he'd done. And he literally told me at that point, it's like, you don't want to work in a shop for the rest of your life. You need to be a Sparky, basically. That's the way to do it and have it as your hobby, which is what I've done now, believe it, obviously. Yeah. I think it was good advice, but would I listen at that point? No way. I wanted to be in a reptile shop. Reptiles was my life, and that's what I'd done. The problem with it, and I think you might have had a little bit of it this week, is making your hobby your job can suck all the passion out. You got to be super careful. I mean, I loved for years and years working in a reptile shop. It was amazing. But towards the end, when money's coming into it and the money's not coming in, and then you're worried more about the money than the reptiles, it can really suck the passion out of it. I mean, now I've never enjoyed the reptiles more than any time throughout my life, basically. So you just got to be careful. If it works and you can make your hobby your job, then fair play, go for it. There's nothing better, really. But you just got to be careful not to make it, a job. If it's hard work and it's sucking the passion out of it, then you'll get fed up. So
it's very true. Like at the minute, I'm currently on the hunt on Facebook Marketplace trying to find some exoterras because I've got a lot of baby Gillenite due. And I don't want to go and buy a load brand new just because the price is ridiculous. And I also don't want to raise in tubs. So I'm scouring. I've got like 2 months to find 6 exoterras. And it's like, I had this epiphany, strangely, because I've never really been a breeder. And at the minute, I seem to be breeding quite well. But I've got this one wall in my room, which is 12 foot long. And it's pretty much just dedicated to hatchlings. And I was like, fuck, this is a 12-foot wall in my room that will be empty for like 6 to 8 months of the year. Just so I can raise babies. And that sort of resonated with me quite hard because people that listen to the podcast know I struggle with space and I want animals in the biggest enclosures possible and bits and bobs like that. So I'm like, I may have to sacrifice some animals just to be a breeder. And that's been sitting with me for the last couple of days now. And I know you breed stuff. Like, how is your mindset with that? Is it like you not as fussed? I just won't produce as many, or you a bit more like, okay, I need to.
Yeah. You got to be really careful. Once you get stuff going, it can be hard to stop it. And you can be really irresponsible and just incubate everything. I mean, all the stuff we work, we're pretty lucky. We're not like the boa guys that just get litters of stuff. We can control it. And I mean, it might sound terrible to people, but if you're incubating this stuff out and not finding homes for it, then that's worse because at some point there's a breaking point. If you've got to keep hold of something for a year or 2 years because nobody wants it, then you've got to find an adult space. You've brought it into the world at the end of the day. It's your responsibility to do that. And then that's the sort of thing you find. You need to almost set up your baby stuff, have it ready and be like, that's what I can fit and for this long. And that's what I done. I know I was getting the Mitchellai out that were producing a lot of eggs. And I was speaking to Dawn and some other people. I was like, if they lay another clutch of eggs, I'm not going to incubate them. It sounds bad. They're a rare species, especially in the UK, but it's finding homes for this stuff. It can be as rare as you want, but if nobody wants it, then you're stuck with it at the end of the day. And you've got to take that choice. Sometimes it's better to take those eggs out and wait a bit longer and wait till you've sold what you've got rather than it's just going to add up. And I think that's what the snake guys get, like the royal guys. Everything in their sort of hobby almost, it seems, is finding the next thing. But they get a lot of like byproduct, basically, trying to chase that morph. I've done it myself with the carpet pythons. You're trying to find, I don't know, the next albino, whatever. But you've also produced a load of normal stuff. You've got to care about that normal stuff as much as you've got to care about that albino one that you really want. So you've got to be sort of hard on yourself I mean, monitors are even worse almost because how quick they grow. They need lighting, they need heating, everything like that. So it sort of narrows you down. I mean, I've got no problem stopping breeding stuff if I don't think I can get rid of it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I have 3 unrelated female Gillini, and one of my Gillini, she's a right tearaway, and she proper attacks my other 2, but not like just the rest of the hustle. She proper attacks, so she's being moved on to another home, and I'm probably going to keep her babies back. And so again, these females are unrelated to the best of my knowledge in the UK, but anyway, we won't get into that. But I don't want to mix the babies because I want to know that this is this female, this is this female, this is this female. And I think that's the ethical thing to do, rather than be like, oh, I think that one's that one, because you're not going to tell them apart. And again, they've double clutched for me. So I'm like, okay, three clutches, that's okay. And now all of a sudden I'm up to 5. And again, people are like, oh, they'll only lay 4 or 5 eggs. The smallest clutch I've had so far is 5. I've had between 5 and 7 eggs every clutch. And I'm like, okay, Jesus Christ. So you have to, like you say, plan for the worst, because if someone said to me, oh, you'll only get 3 clutches, 1 from each, and it'll only be 4 eggs, I'm like, oh, well, 12 Gillini's not too bad. But now I'm looking at 27. So
it almost compounds, unfortunately. The more successful you are, the more lizards you're going to hatch out at the end of the day when it comes to breeding. You need like a contingency plan. The UK market is pretty small. It's really small now. We've come to Brexit. So I think a lot of us breeders are going to have to work out a way of getting it over to Europe. I mean, the Europe market, say tree monitors, is still booming at the end of the day. But the UK market becomes saturated pretty quickly. So if you want to continue to breed, you need to be thinking a year in advance. Okay, I'm going to breed X amount this year, but am I going to be able to sell X amount? Am I going to flood the market in the UK? And then even then, if you sold them more than the UK, you might even be left with some that you still can't sell. What are you going to do with those? So you need some sort of way of exporting them out, or just stop breeding them. It's one or the other. There's only so many you can keep.
This is going to be a controversial question, and obviously I'm not expecting you to. I don't know what answer I'm expecting you to have, but my first thought on that, let's just take the Gillini that I'm breeding. We'll use me as an example. Currently, I don't know the value of Gillini, but they're roughly right around that 350 mark. I think they're selling for at the minute, whether they're selling for that or not. But all of a sudden, let's just say I'm flooding the market. I hatch all my babies. A couple of other people are sitting on eggs. All of a sudden, these Gillini's, boom, we've flooded the market. So naturally, supply and demand, the price drops naturally. Now, do you think price dropping on species, regardless across the board, is a good or a bad thing?
It's sometimes not even about the price, because the price can come down to £50 and you still might not be able to get rid of those Gillini.
Yeah.
They become, and then even if you're giving them away at that point, and people don't want them because the people that want them have got them, you're still stuck with those Gillini. So you need to think, can I house those Gillini if I can't sell them? If it takes me 3 years to sell them, because it all goes in a cyclical fashion. People breed stuff, price comes down, nobody wants it, the price goes back up. That's how the reptile hobby works all over. But from an ethical point of view, you need to know you can house adult Gillini if you're producing that many. So you can either decide to nip it in the bud, or you can think, okay, I'm going to drop the price down and I will be able to get rid of that, which nobody knows, unfortunately. So the price drop, all prices are, like I said, are cyclical. I don't think, for like Kimberley rock monitors and Gillini, they've gone up and down so much. It's pretty ridiculous. I think all species will, if it's just supply and demand. It's pretty simple like that. And that's not that worries me. The price is so much on stuff. I mean, you've got the other end of the spectrum that if you're selling Gillini for £50, what sort of people are you then introducing? They might just want a lizard. It's £50. You're desperate to get rid of them because you haven't got the space for them. Now, someone that maybe isn't ready for one thinks, oh, it's £50. I'll take a punt on it. It becomes a disposable pet at that point. And I think you as a breeder need to be responsible and nip that in the bud. You need to know, okay, if I don't, I can sell this many over this amount of time. And during that amount of time, I've got enough space for them to be housed, basically. And if nobody buys them, I'm happy to keep them. Which, if you're lacking on space, it's hard. Like, I'm thinking about building a baby room at the moment for the tree monitors. If I carry on producing the tree monitors like I am, I'm going to have an over surplus basically. Even if I dropped them to a ridiculously sort of cheap value, I think there's not enough people that can house them adequately in the UK for the amount I'm producing. So I'm going to stop producing them so much, or find a way of exporting them out. You need that contingency plan basically. And if I've got that baby room with sort of grow on cages, I can hold on to them for a year or two. So sort of, you're not in a desperate rush to get rid of them. So that's the way I see it. I don't think price comes into it so much.
No, that's a fair point, mate. I agree. I'll be completely honest. I'm still contemplating because when I first got Indicus, I was like, yeah, oh my God, they're my favorite species. I love them. I adore them. Oh my God, yeah, I need loads. I need to make sure I get my pairs. I need to make sure I can breed them. I need to make sure let's get loads, this, that, and the other. Now, I'll be 100% honest where I sit right now, prior to this conversation, but where I sit right now, I'm like, maybe I'll breed them once, keep the babies, and then don't ever do it again. Because like you say, it's not about the price. It's not about that they're captive bred. It is about where do they go and who can do it properly. Whereas Gill and I, there's a lot more that can do it properly. Whereas Indicus or tree monitors, there are a lot less, or Bosque monitors, there are a lot less that can do it to the standards we would probably want our babies to go to.
Yeah, but the big thing comes there is you don't want to turn into this breeder sort of thing of just breeding stuff. If you're not keeping stuff that you enjoy, if they never bred, then you're doing the wrong thing at the end of the day. It can't just all be about breeding. I know breeding is like a big goal for most of us. It's amazing, hatching eggs. I'd be a hypocrite if I said it wasn't the best thing in the world. I love it. But if you're keeping stuff just to breed it, then it's no good either. You've got to actually want to keep that species and enjoy that species anyway. So the breeding is like a big plus. It's a step in the right direction. It sort of validates what you do yourself. But if you're just keeping stuff to breed it, to sell it, then it just doesn't work. It's proven not to work with a lot of stuff. Like I said, with the big stuff like Indicus, the tree monitors, you've then got the added thing of you've just got a smaller market is all it is. That's why people are, and there's so many crested geckos being bred. There's a big market for it because it doesn't take up a lot of room to keep a few crested geckos. So
also as well, I find crested geckos and royals and leopard geckos, they very much are they can fit the good pet niche, but they also are part of a clique. Whereas it's almost like it's like a Pokemon card. But yeah, I agree. It's more about where they go, because that's sort of what I'm thinking at the minute with the mangroves. But on that, just quickly then, because obviously rare reptiles are. I've said on the podcast many a times, I only keep stuff that I like, and I go through certain stages. I'm like, well, I don't like you. I do like you. It doesn't matter to me how rare it is. And I know, before I even ask this question, I know you don't just keep what you keep because they're rare. They just happen to be rare.
Yeah.
But how did you end up on the species that you keep now? Like, what is it about the species that you keep now that you're like, do you know what? Because obviously you're monitor heavy. So what is it about the species that you have now that sort of set your heart on fire?
Like I said, because I've had the shops and worked in the shop for however long it's been, years and years and years, I've kept pretty much everything you can keep at some point in the shop. I've had it through, and there's certain species that you click with, and there's certain ones that are really cool, but they're for somebody else. And the monitors have just from day one have just always been the ones for me. They're just so personable. They're active. I mean, I went for years just keeping snakes. I mean, keeping snakes for the most part is pretty damn boring. It's cool. There's cool species. I love snakes, but compared to a monitor that you can interact with, it's just worlds apart, really. I mean, they have their own niche. Snakes, like I said, are super cool, but I don't know. I just get something more from the monitors. And I just know it's sort of ignited a passion. I mean, seeing those first Ackies that Ty and Dawn had, like they were way out of my price range. They were like £500. I was like 13. I was like, oh, I'm never going to get to keep them. But I've researched the hell out of them. I know every single thing about them. And then went on the forums back in the day, was part of this sort of clique. Luckily, they didn't come down in price, and obviously I was able to get some at some point. But yeah, I've kept a lot of stuff, and they're just the ones that have sort of stayed true throughout the lot of it. The rare reptiles side of things is a bit the same. I've seen stuff come and go out of the hobby and not be obtainable anymore. So I sort of started it wanting to keep some of this stuff, like the tree monitors and stuff, they could have easily, like especially in the UK, like we are now, they've easily just disappeared from the hobby. And they're awesome anyway, so it's a pretty easy choice to keep them. But they're also rare. I just think I've been quite successful with that sort of stuff. So that's the sort of stuff I wanted to keep really, and keep it in the hobby for future generations. Like I said, those cluster leopards and stuff, they were so cheap, and I'm struggling now to find one. And it's like, that's been in my lifetime of they've been available to me, cheap and been available to now. I wouldn't even know where to get one. You can't just get them in the UK. I'd have to import them from Europe. So yeah, that's sort of why I decided. And then, like I said, there's so many monitors that are cool. I keep quite a small collection now compared to what I've done in the past, but it's almost better. I'm super happy with what I'm keeping. I can really concentrate. I haven't got loads of everything. I've got a few different niches. I'm working with those, and that's sort of what I do.
It's the same as Cordensis. Like, where are they?
Yeah, gone. Yeah. I remember turning my nose up at them. That's how bad it was. They were available, and they were just like, I was just like everyone else. I'm not going to lie. Just like they had the olive green ones. When you've got Macraei in front of you and Prasinus and all that, why would you go for Cordensis? Yeah. And the problem is with those is, do people want them because they're do people want them because they're rare now, or do people want them because they're cool? It's the same with bowmine and stuff like that. Yeah, it's one of those. It gives us, as reptile keepers, we always want the stuff we can't have. It's just a fact at the end of the day. So if there was a load of Cordensis I bred, would they sell quicker than a Prasinus and Macraei? I don't think so.
No, I think to be fair, mate, I think what you've just spilled there is a very hard truth that a lot of us don't want to listen to. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't sometimes fall for that trap. Because I've just asked myself now, because I'd like Cordensis, but also Prasinus is my favorite of the whole complex. So I like the green. So I've just asked myself now, do I want them because they're not here, or do I want them because I want them? And I don't know. I generally don't know.
It's a difficult one. What I say on that is I'd like them to be here. Like, I don't keep Macraei, for example. I think Macraei are beautiful animals, but I know they're here. And there's people doing really good work with them, and a lot of people have got them. So that's why I'm not working with them. I chose like black tree monitors over Macraei at the end of the day. It's difficult. I'd like Cordensis to be here. I'd like bowmine to be here. Because I think we got the risk of losing them. Luckily, they are in Europe at the end of the day. So if anyone really did want them, we could get them. But nobody's taken that stab yet, and it's probably for the reason of, if I get a load of Cordensis in, or some Cordensis in, it's going to go back to when they're available, what do people actually want? So unless you're keeping them for yourself and you really love them and you think they're amazing, and it doesn't matter if you breed them or make them available, you just want Cordensis, and then you're doing it for the responsible side of, we don't want to lose these in the UK hobby, then you've got to ask yourself, do you really want them?
It's so true, man. It's a great point that I've never touched on, and like I say, I'm not even going to sit here and try and dispute it, because I have fallen to Indicus. No one wants Indicus. Like, I want Indicus.
You picked a funny one.
Literally, no one will buy my babies. All right, there'll be like 3 people in the whole country, and that'll be it.
And that's where you've got to be careful with them, because if you get successful with them, then I think
I won't be able to. I'd have to stop.
Yeah, the markets
or import.
Yeah.
On that question, how many herping trips have you had to Indonesia? Is it just the one?
No. I can't even remember now. So the first one, so leading on from shutting the shop down, that's what actually led me into the trips. The shop I actually named Pilbara Reptiles. That was the name of my second shop, and that was literally to pay homage to a region of Australia. It's like a herping mecca for anyone that knows. There's so much cool stuff there. Even the Australians going over there. If you haven't been to the Pilbara to herp in Australia, then it's sort of that's where you need to be, really. So I had that in the back of my head. A friend of mine was going on sort of regular trips then. I couldn't go. I had a shop at the end of the day. There's no way I could go and leave that shop. We had venomous stuff in there, inland taipans, cobras, all the rest of it. There's no way I was leaving all that stuff with my mum and the guy we had working in there while I swung off to go herping. But as soon as I shut that shop, I was like, right, that's one door that's shut now. But and I was obviously upset at the time about it, but it has opened this other avenue basically, so I can now go herping. So we planned the trip, basically a trip of a lifetime almost, me and my girlfriend, to herp the whole of Western Australia, including the Pilbara, but also go to Indonesia. So after we finished in Australia, we took a trip to Bali, met up with the guys from the Bali Reptile Rescue, went looking for king cobras, and also on that trip we went to Komodo as well. To obviously find Komodo dragons, the blue Insularis, and that sort of stuff. And then I think, this is bad, really, isn't it? I think I've been there to Indonesia 4 times, but mainly to Bali, to that sort of area. And then obviously more recently has been the trip to Batanta, which is obviously West Papua New Guinea, which is it's sort of split in half, but it is still Indonesian, but it's far, far east Indonesia, where not many people go.
That was going to be my question, because obviously, because you and I we met in person in March, was the show?
Yeah, the
AHH conference. I think we had a little bit of a liaison backwards and forwards, obviously both aware of each other, but never really spoken.
Yeah.
Met in March, had a really long conversation, and just got to know each other properly, and we've been speaking regularly since. So obviously I don't know exactly your background. How many species of tree monitor have you seen in the wild? Because my question was going to be, you're not keeping Macraei, but they're the ones that you went to document in the wild, but I don't know if you've seen others in the wild. So have you seen others?
We've seen another, but I don't want to get into that just yet, which you know about. Yeah, I've seen 2 tree monitors in the wild, but yeah, Macraei are the main ones, and then hopefully we can talk in the future about another one that I might have seen, or might not.
moving swiftly on. If you know, you know.
Like I said, the next trip is to photograph those ones, leave a bit of suspense there, because we just don't know what they are just yet. Could be nothing, could be something super cool. So yeah, we'll leave that for a future podcast. But yeah, Macraei was basically the only reason we went for Macraei was because that was the easiest one to get to. Batanta sits right next to Sarong, and you fly into Sarong. The good thing about, or maybe the bad thing about Macraei is they're the one that is being still collected in numbers for the pet trade. So there is a village in Batanta called Amdui, where there is a group of hunters basically that are still going out catching wild tree monitors. Well, Macraei basically. So that was just an easy one. It was the closest island. It was the cheapest place to go to. And like I said to you pre-show, I wanted to go over there, work things out, see how safe it was. Not many people have been there before. Work out, am I going to go there and just get robbed? What's going to happen? What's the food situation like? All the rest of it. Can it be done? And like I said, Batanta was just the easiest one to get to. And like I said, it was all just set up from there.
Okay, perfect. Just quick interjection. Thank you so much, Brad, for the donation. If people don't know, go and check out Brad's Bioactive builds. He speaking of Macraei, I'm going to ask you that in a second because I know why you say it, but I'm going to ask you because I said I'm going to ask you. He has a sick blue tree monitor enclosure, so please go and check out Brad's Bioactive builds. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate the support and love. So I'm going to guess why you say Macraei. Because obviously my opinion of Latin, because my girlfriend Fee, has been in the chat saying she feels like we're a part of a secret club saying all these secret words. So obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, discovered by Duncan Macraei or described by Duncan Macraei?
Neither really, as far as I can work out. It's a bit of a backstory we can go into on that. I mean, Duncan is an amazing bloke. He's the reason they're here for sure. I don't know if Duncan's ever been there. I've never spoken to him about it. But there's a guy called Manfred Reisinger. He was the first Westerner to come over and discover, sort of find the Macraei. While he was trying to export Macraei for the first time, Duncan's guys basically managed to get some of themselves. And then Duncan was the first guy to export them out for the pet trade. And then I think he's exporting to America, and then some scientists, I can't remember who described them now, named them in honor of Duncan.
Okay.
So he didn't exactly go over there and find them, but he was definitely instrumental in introducing them to trade, hence why they were named after him. Like I said, he had an amazing operation. He set up Bali Reptile Zoo and had Herping as like an exporter. I mean, I remember getting shipments in from him at Aztec, which was like, some of the stuff we got was just insane, like green tree pythons. He was doing all the locality green tree pythons and stuff like that. I don't think we ever got any tree monitors off him at that point. So he's like super instrumental. Nobody should take that away from him. But Manfred sort of got a bit ripped off on that department, why they weren't named after him. Luckily, he then got the yellows named after him, so it all worked out well in the end. I'm happy for both of them. Like I said, they were instrumental. I mean, the first guy, as far as I can work out, to ever see them outside of Batanta was Nerdin, who's my contact over there. He was filming a documentary on Salvadori, and someone from that, they were on Batanta looking for him, and someone from the village showed him a blue tree monitor, basically, which nobody knew what it was. He knew. Did
you even imagine?
Yeah, just insane, just absolutely insane. He told Manfred about it. Manfred was obviously a German guy. He got a flight over. I don't know if he was over there at the time. Anyway, then those two met up. Manfred went over to Amdui, caught the first ones, and then was in the process of trying to export them out when Duncan's guy got hold of them. I think what happened is there was an exporter in Sarong who was sort of sending everything from the different islands. Sarong is like a hub, a port basically, so it's like a hub for sending everything out. Nerdin stupidly, or however way you look at it, unfortunately for Manfred, had told the exporter, oh, there's a blue lizard that lives in Batanta. And so he was on his phone straight away. There were some guys from the Aru Islands that were going around collecting stuff at that time. So that's where obviously the first Beckerai and stuff come from. They took a boat straight to Batanta, collected all these lizards. They actually taught the guys in Amdui that were just like pearl fishermen at the time how to collect these lizards, basically. So it gave them a trade almost, which they now obviously do today. Told them about that. They went to that exporter. That exporter obviously gave them to Duncan's farm, and then from there, Duncan exported them out and got them named after him. So it's pretty cool. Like I said, Duncan's pretty instrumental in pretty much all that Indonesian stuff. There's a few others. There's a guy called Cameron from Bushmaster. He's an American guy. He was like the first to do some of the islands, get the species off those islands. He was going over there, traveling, setting up these connections. And that's what I was saying to you before. You've got to go over and set these connections up. In the 90s and stuff, it was a lot easier to do. Well, not easy, it was harder to get there. But I think it was easier to export stuff out than there was obviously less laws. We've got the EU ban on some tree monitors now, which obviously stops us bringing stuff in. But yeah, if you're not over there teaching these locals, it's just another snake. It's like, so those guys on Amdui, they would have them in their gardens. I was speaking to the guys over there, and they're just like, yeah, it's just a blue lizard. We didn't know anything about it until someone says, oh, I'll give you, I don't know, X amount of money for the blue lizard. Then it becomes important, which unfortunately is then the sort of detriment of that species a little bit. But yeah, that's the story as far as I can go. There's a good article I translated. I think Stuart's got it on his website of that whole story from Manfred, where he went over to Batanta for the first time, found these blue lizards. I mean, it's good for like Nerdin, but can you imagine from a guy from Germany going over and finding that? Like, how awesome would that be? This like a bright blue lizard.
You can't even imagine it.
Insane.
Completely. Thank you for the super chat, Michael. And one day when your boy's YouTube famous, I'll take everyone around the world.
Yeah.
So just a random question, because I don't know if you have. I mean, I don't think anyone has the answer. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. But do you know why they're blue? Because it's such a random color for nature. Is it because other things on the island would perceive them as poisonous or venomous? But
I mean, I definitely don't have the answer, and I'm not qualified to speak to that point. Blue's really rare in the wild, in nature anyway, so it's a difficult one. But when you start seeing them, I think me and Dawn were discussing it before. It's got to be the only predators I can really see is other monitors over there, and then birds. And I know birds see colours a lot different. I know they see yellow a lot different. I don't know if they see blue a lot different. Like I said, I'm not qualified to answer, but that's the only sort of predators I can see. So maybe the blue it's not visible to the predators over there. It's like it's a random color, but there's got to be a reason why stuff is blue. I don't think it's because anything thinks they're venomous or anything like that. It just, like, when you see them from the ground and you look up, it's a lot different. Like, they blend in. That blue breaks up with the black, and they are hard to see. But I think, again, if it was stuff like eagles and stuff from above looking down into the canopy, then the same thing sort of happened. I mean, nature's just insane. Blue's just an insane color, and pretty rare in nature.
Just quick, and Chris has been kind enough to share me some photos, so we're gonna bring the photos up in a minute. We're gonna go through all these photos. Some seen, some not seen.
Yeah.
But just quickly, we're going to get really into the trip, and we can touch on a few photos. I won't.
Any questions anyone's got?
Yeah, any questions, bring them up now, because like I say, once we get some photos up, I won't be able to see you guys because I'll be on the photo page. But was it safe, and was it that expensive, or was it not too bad?
Compared to what I had in my head, it was ridiculously safe in some aspects, but I don't know. It depends if you've traveled around Indonesia before. There's some, obviously, the food's a big one. Not getting ill from the food because the sanitation is pretty different to what we're sort of used to in the Western world. And then the boats, if you've got some bad weather over there, which I can touch in a bit later, we did when we were coming back, it becomes really, really scary all of a sudden. But for the most part, I found it completely safe, much like a lot of other parts of Indonesia. But there's also that worry of anything can happen at any point. You're pretty cut off. There's no phone signal. You're relying on the guys with the boat. I mean, these boats are not designed to go across where they're going across sort of the open sea. They're all right around the islands themselves, but when you're having to cross from sort of Sorong to Batanta or Waigeo to Batanta is what we did. If the sea's calm, it's like, well, this is wicked. What's everyone moaning about? As soon as that sea gets a bit rough, it becomes a whole different matter. Expensive is fairly cheap. I mean, I was paying the guys over there what they basically get. If they caught a monitor and sold it, I was paying them a day rate. If they caught stuff or didn't catch stuff, I was paying them that no matter what. So it gave them some incentive to go out, and then I was giving them a tip every time they caught a Macraei, basically. So that sort of made it worth it for them. And everything we caught was catch and release. I wouldn't let them take anything back to sell. So I was like, I'll give you the money plus tips, basically, that you'd get for catching this monitor. But they need to go back into the wild, basically. But yeah, Indonesia is really cheap when you get that. I mean, accommodation and food and all the rest of it is just ridiculous. I don't know. Frizzy's from Australia. I don't know. Yeah, it should be cheaper for him, but I don't know. Their airfares in Australia seem expensive to get to. Like, you'd have to go to Jakarta for Australia, which is super close, but I reckon they'd probably get charged the same amount. So the flights are fairly expensive. I think you're looking at sort of £1,500 for your flight to Jakarta, and then you want to Sorong, and then, like I said, it's paying for your accommodation when you're over there. I mean, in total, the whole trip probably cost £3,000, something like that, £3,000.
Quite a bit. Not ridiculous for what it was, but still.
That was me on my own paying for absolutely everything. If you went there with someone else, you could split the cost a little bit better. And like I said, it doesn't really matter. I went there for quite a short time because I was unsure about how safe it was going to be. I wanted to do a sort of a recce, but that wouldn't really get more expensive that much, apart from obviously the hunter's costs and maybe a bit of accommodation. So yeah, stuff's fairly cheap. But I also wanted to look after the guys over there. I mean, they need some incentive to take some guy that's flown over from England, take them out and take their time out from. They could be catching wild tree monitors and sort of selling them. So,
just as a little side quest, Indo or Oz, because I know you've been to Australia a few times.
Yeah.
Which one for a first herping holiday? Which one's best? Obviously, I guess it depends on. I mean, Australia has a multitude of climates and habitats, but Australia depends what you're after.
Yeah, Australia is a huge country, so there is monitor is the land of the monitor. You probably see more monitors in Australia than you're going to see in Indonesia because there's just a higher density of different species within one area. You sort of need to pick out an area. Australia's I can't recommend enough for a first herping trip. I mean, you will be seeing stuff every single day, which in Indonesia is not the case. So you can become a bit jaded if you're not finding stuff. Australia, there is always something to see. I mean, they've got so many species of reptiles. You're pretty much always happy. The issue with Australia is the other side of the coin is it's expensive. Food's really expensive over there. You're traveling large distances to get to the places. So petrol cost, even it's cheaper than in England, but it's still a lot of money. Then you've got rental, accommodation, all that stuff's more expensive. But if I was going to say for the first time trip to pick between the two, you need to, I'd say Australia, basically.
I don't know if you can or can't answer this. If you can't, that's fine. But you might have said it. But how do you get in contact with the tour guides? Like I say, I don't know if you can or cannot touch on this.
Yeah, I mean, for Batanta, the best thing to do is just go on.
I was going to say, do you want people to message you? Because I didn't know how.
I mean, that's I don't mind. Like it actually helps the guys over there. So I don't mind helping anyone get over there. Basically, I'm full of advice to get over there. So yeah, I can put you in contact once I've had a bit of a chat with you. Basically, the culture is completely different from here. So there's a few sort of, I don't want to say ground rules, but there's a few things that might be a bit of a culture shock. It's worth going over those before I just sort of put you onto a guide. And you might screw up your own trip basically if you go about it the wrong way.
Yeah, Chris's links to one, his website, and two, his Instagram are the link below. So if anyone wants to speak to Chris, go and follow him. If anyone wants to speak to Chris, link in the description. Yeah, I'm going to Frizzy's house and I'm pitching up a tent in his garden. And he's gonna take me herping. We're gonna sleep in a field.
You can go anywhere in Australia and you won't be unhappy. I mean, the species that Frizzy's probably got on his doorstep, which just blows ours out of the water.
I forget. I know he's south, but I don't know exactly. I forget what exactly part of Australia's in. But I know he has beardies in his back garden.
You literally don't have to go far. I need to speak to Frizzy actually. He's got one of the ones that I sort of my unicorn species in Australia, which is Cordia lineatus, the striped-tailed pygmy monitor. I've never been able to find. I've put some real effort into to getting those, but never turned them up. So I need to speak to him about that.
That's it. We'll go over it. We'll sleep in his garden. It's fine. Did you get an idea on how many were being caught by the trappers, and were the trappers locals or people coming over from Sarong and or other islands?
So like I said before, in Batanta there's just one village basically called Amdui, where most of the men on that island, their job, where they get their income from, is from catching Macraei basically. I don't know how many they're catching. It all depends on there's a guy in Sarong basically that puts the order in to those guys. So he might say, catch me as many blue tree monitors as you possibly can this week. And they'll go out as a team of sort of 5 to 10 of them, go around and catch as many tree monitors as they can get, basically. On average, they're looking at sort of 2 a day between the 5 of them. Sometimes they get 1 each a day. So you're looking at 5 a day and add that up. Unfortunately, I heard recently the guys in Sarong wanted a load of tree monitors and they actually went to North Batanta and come back with 100 blue tree monitors. So yeah, it's a difficult one. You can't. It's really hard. That was probably the hardest thing about going over there. I was like dead against all the export. I think we've had enough exported out into the hobby for any more to be exported out. I think if you look at the CITES database, in 10 years there was like 3,000 that have come out. For the amount that are being bred, it just doesn't add up. And I think we've had our chance, or we've got our chance. But then you go and speak to the hunters over there, and that is the only way they've got of making any extra money. So they live off the land for the most part. They can do a bit of logging, which is probably a worse job than catching the tree mouse. You just sort of destroy the habitat. I've lost my train of thought now. So yeah,
I would be can or can't answer it, but how much they get paid? I don't know if you can or can't.
Yeah, I've written it in an article before, so they're getting £30 per lizard, basically.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, obviously, and then that's going to Sarong, and it just accumulates from there. It's a really weird one with Macraei. Pretty much all the other tree monitors I can think of are protected by the Indonesian government. For some reason, Macraei aren't. They're not protected, so you can take those from Batanta to Sarong, that's perfectly legal. From Sarong to Jakarta, I don't know whether that's legal. I just don't know enough about it to comment, basically. But yeah, there's nothing stopping them over there. Where with Risengari, Macraei, and all those other ones, they've been protected by the Indonesian government, so they shouldn't be coming out as far as wild caught goes. They still are, I think, but it's a hard one.
That was the question I was going to ask there, but I forgot. Oh yeah. Have they done like a real evaluation on the level of endangerment on Macraei, or do you not know?
I spoke to Mark from the ICUN. They think nobody's done it as far as I'm aware. I think Peter Falsham and a group of scientists from Indonesia went over there, but I don't know if they did anything towards how many there actually are. I don't know how you'd set that up.
Be hard to
I guess you could set up in Amdui and see how many were being exported out, but like I said, I don't know the legalities of all of that anyway, and whether they would just sort of stop doing it while you were over there and then start straight back up again as soon as you were gone. So as far as I know, the ICUN haven't done any survey on it in particular. So yeah, they don't know how endangered they are. Batanta's a small island. All the collecting goes along the coast, basically, and in the habitat in the middle of Batanta, it's pretty mountainous. I mean, even I struggled on some parts of the hunters were taking me. It was literally really, really steep. So I think if they're in the middle, which nobody knows because nobody's really looked for them, I think they'd be fairly safe there, but they're going to become locally extinct. I mean, Amdui, where the hunters are, they used to find them in the village, literally in their gardens. They're not finding them anymore. That's because they've been over-collected in that area. I did go 10 minutes boat ride to the left of Amdui and 10 minutes boat ride, which isn't very far, and we did find them again. So it sort of gives you a bit of hope they're there. But yeah, if I was trying to explain this to the hunters as well as over there is, if you're going to hunt these things, try to make it more sustainable. If you take 2 from here and then move down a bit more and take 2 from there, it's much better than just taking all of them from that population. They sort of started to agree with me, but like I said, there's like 30 guys there. Get people over there or start these tours going over there, because if they can get money from taking people out looking for them like they do with the birds of paradise, like people photograph and stuff, they'll then want to protect them. It's like an eco-tourism sort of thing.
Frizy, is it pronounced Erie Peninsula?
I think, yeah.
But yeah, and do you know the size of the island? I can Google it probably.
I think it's 400 and something square kilometers, but yeah, if you could double check.
Yeah, I'll Google it. How big is a question I did want to ask you whilst I'm Googling this is, obviously now you've had boots on the ground and you're keeping tree monitors and bits and bobs. What Freezy's saying, what is probably the biggest takeaway that you have taken away and gone, well, one, I need to implement that, and or shit, we've all been doing this wrong kind of thing?
The first one is how lucky we are to have Macraei in the hobby. If you start going over to these places, it's literally like, how did these things even get so far from where they're coming from over to where we are? For keeping side of things, it's difficult because it's so different in the wild than it is in captivity, so it's hard to sort of pinpoint. A few little things, I was over there taking some sort of UVI readings and some temperatures. That seems to be pretty much where we've got them. I mean, the average UV was like a 3 Ferguson zone 3, and went up to like a 6 on the sunniest day. Like I said, I was only there for 9 days, so don't take this as gospel, as that's what it's like the whole year. And then we were getting sort of temperatures. The average sort of temperature was about 28, but we got up to 32. I know from a paper that Raoul did when he went there, he got up to like 35 over there. The humidity was a big one. That's really hard to implement in captivity. I mean, it did not drop below 80% humidity day or night. I've never been anywhere as humid in my whole life. As I literally walked off the boat and I was sweating. That's all there is to it. It was super humid, and most of the time, like I said, 85-90% humidity all the time. Implementing that in a cage, pretty hard to do with like the airflow and all that. I think you would just cause yourself more problems than it's worth. So temperature wise, the big one that shocked me a little bit was how warm it was at night. I mean, it was like 25. I don't think it dropped below 25 at night. And I keep mine a lot cooler than that. I'm dropping down to like 19, 20, and I've seen better results in captivity by dropping them that low. Sort of something Julian put me onto, actually. Obviously, if you guys will know Julian in the UK, he's super successful. I was keeping him at like 25, and I was getting dud eggs and all sorts, and dropping them down. I don't know if that was the key to it, or I think there's a multitude of reasons. But yeah, it didn't drop below 25. Was that? I don't know what the coldest time of the year is there, but it was pretty warm at night. But yeah, I think in captivity, it's worth dropping them down, from what I can see.
Yeah, Batanta is 453 squared kilometers.
Yeah, that was pretty close.
Missile and Wago are smaller. I mean, I've never really looked at this, but Missile's
bigger.
Well, it says here it's only 2. I know that's me being an idiot. It's 2,000. I didn't see the decimal point. Don't worry.
Missile's pretty big. Missile's actually one of the biggest islands. Waigeo is bigger again.
Even though it's not. Just forget that. I was reading it as just 200, but it's 2,000. Don't worry.
Yeah, anyway, Batanta's definitely the smallest one there.
Yeah.
Other things, the things I did implement, we can show some pictures later, was leaf litter. That's massive. If you're not putting leaf litter in with your tree monitors, you're just doing it wrong. Everywhere we went was just loads of leaf litter. They love it anyway. As soon as I started adding that, which I hadn't before, I went there. As soon as they come back and did that, they were loving it. As most monitors do when you put something new in, but it adds to the humidity. It's good for like the bioactive side of things. I don't know what else I've sort of implemented. It's difficult. It's so different from the wild to keeping stuff in a box. There's no translation. I mean, it's hard. Obviously, yeah, we're not doing anything too wrong, I don't think. We can obviously always do stuff better, but the parameters most of us are keeping, the temperatures seem to be working. Obviously, it seems to be working well in captivity, and then seems to translate to what was happening in the wild. Same with the UV and stuff, like I said before, that was sort of bang on. It went from 0 right under the canopy to sort of 3.5 was average.
Because I asked, because I've got air conditioning in my room, because my room is basically just a conservatory, a sun house, or whatever you want to call it in America. And my aircon hose came out of the back of my AC unit, which obviously is just pumping hot air into my room. And I've got a Wi-Fi thermometer in my room, and it basically pinged, and it was like 40 degrees in my room. Obviously, that was over a very quick period of time. The Vivs hadn't had a chance to heat up this, that, and the other. But my enclosures were like 32 degrees, which I think is like 90 plus. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to come home. Everything's going to... The mangroves were out, loving it. The tree monitors were basking. Like in a 32 degree ambient room, the tree monitors were basking, which blew my mind. Well, the room was hotter, but the 32 degrees ambient of the enclosure, which I don't normally keep. I'd probably normally keep an ambient of around 26 and then rise up into the hotter, the higher 30s. I personally keep around a 50 degree basking spot. But yeah, so I was a bit like, oh my God, maybe we're keeping these animals too cold, because I actually saw the mangroves, and I never see the mangroves, and they weren't pacing for like, oh my God, it's hot stress. They were just out and about, cruising around.
I mean, they're definitely going to get temperatures like that. Like I said, that the temperatures I was talking about before with the 32 and stuff that I was there, that was ambient temperature, was 32. So they're getting that quite regularly. Plus the sun on a hot tree limb or something like that's going to get them well up into sort of the 50s, and possibly even the 60s. So yeah, they're going to love it. I think the problem is you need to give them that option. That's just reptile keeping. If you kept them at that all the time, their metabolism's going to be through the roof. They're going to be using a lot more energy. And just like I said, that's why bigger cages are good. If you can supply that gradient, that's where you get over that, and that's such a big bonus, really. But yeah, keeping it in that sort of Goldilocks zone, like a lot of us are, sort of 25 to 28 maybe. Ambient seems to be working well in captivity. Like I said, it changes. It can be 32 degrees. One day on Batanta, then you might get the next day super overcast and cloudy, and it's dropping down to 28. They just get a wider range just being in the wild, obviously.
Super chat's priority, guys. Did you find any, or are you aware of them actually coming onto the ground?
I didn't find any, or we didn't find any on the ground. They definitely do come down to the ground. I know a lot of the Australians find Keith Hornine stuff, and it's been documented they do come down. So they're not just completely in the trees. So Macraei is going to be exactly the same. But yeah, what the interesting thing, another take from it was they're living in like the bigger trees. So it's roosting basically, but each day they seem to be coming down from these big trees into like smaller trees basically, where you wouldn't quite expect them to be, into these bushes. The only reason is there's more sunlight in those patches. It's not under the canopy. You get like these areas of the forest basically, where you've got like secondary growth, and you've got these smaller trees. And I think every single one apart from one we actually found in these smaller trees. Speak to the guys over there, they're eating katydids, grasshoppers, that sort of stuff, because they're going on the smaller trees basically. These big trees is all just a big trunk basically. But yeah, we actually sat and watched one come from absolutely huge tree, and they were just like, wait, and actually come down the tree and then hopped across into one of these smaller trees, and they're like, this is when we catch them, when they come into the small trees. Otherwise they're just straight back up the big tree, and these trees are pretty massive, full of holes and stuff. So they seem to be coming down sort of between 8 and 12 depending on the weather. If they've had a lot of rain, they're going to stay out later, so it might be sunny in the morning, they might come into these smaller trees, it might rain, so they'll retreat then, and then they come out back to get that afternoon sun to warm up again basically. So they're getting like this gradient throughout the day. But yeah.
Someone has just asked, I see treetops as well as Frizy, so similar questions. So 1, what month did you go, and 2, was it in their wet or their dry season?
I went in November, and I think it's just come into their dry season then, even though it did rain every single day. I think, as far as I'm aware, now and a bit earlier is their wet season, where it's literally pouring down every single day. But yeah, I was there sort of the sort of start of the dry season.
I've never been there, so this could be a stupid question, but like, obviously we're a quite wet country, and if it pours down with rain, you stand under a tree. For the most part, at the bottom of it, you don't get wet. Did you find that when it was raining, the canopy was taking a lot of the brunt, or was it raining?
It depends on the trees. Again, like I said, with the big trees, they're taking most of the brunt. We did have like the best day actually that we found them was where it was sunny in the morning. We had a huge rainstorm sort of the start of the afternoon, and then it got super sunny again. And that is literally, the hunters were all excited. They're like, this is when we're going to find stuff. That's when we found the Jobiensis, and we found 2 Macraei that day as well. So yeah, but the floor is pretty wet anyway, because you've got all that compounding leaf litter. So it does trickle down. And like I said, in the rainy season, I think it would get pretty sodden where they are, but I don't know how active they are during that time of year anyway. They might be getting like small pockets where there's sunshine, they're coming out feeding, and then probably retreating back to the larger trees, just to sort of conserve their thermal energy.
So then on that, I doubt you saw any nesting, but what is your opinion on how they're nesting?
So, like I said it before, I was pretty shocked by the substrate, or under the leaf litter, or parts that didn't have leaf litter. It was compacted clay. I personally don't think they can dig into this clay. It's pretty rock hard. It would just take too much effort for them to go there. What I did see was lots of rotten logs with sort of leaf litter inside them. So I'm thinking they're probably laying in there. We also did see a lot of arboreal termite mounds. I did ask the guys over there, do you ever find them in there? And they sort of laughed at me a little bit and said, no, because the termites would just pester the Macraei too much. But you did see old termite mounds there with like holes in them where birds have nested. I mean, that is pretty ideal for a tree monarch. So they're definitely going to be utilising those old abandoned termite mounds, which will still got all that mulch and stuff in, but without the termites. Nerdin just spoke to me a few weeks ago. He asked one of the older guys that doesn't collect them anymore, because obviously I asked them about these termite mounds, and this old guy can remember. Basically, he was looking for a Macraei, and it shot into one of these termite mounds, and he ended up actually smashing the termite mound up to find this Macraei, and he did see some eggs in there that he believed are from the Macraei. I mean, they get wild caught. Well, they catch obviously the female sometimes, and they do lay, so they know what Macraei egg looks like. So yeah, I just don't think the live termite mound thing, they just don't believe. I don't know. I know a lot of the Australian monitors, or some of the Australian monitors do that, but there are a lot of the bigger ones. Like I said, I wouldn't cancel anything out. Between the two of them, it's got to be rotten logs, I think, and the termite mounds is another one, but maybe without the termites in them.
How are the mosquitoes?
Compared to Australia, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I think I got bit the whole trip like 3 times. They were just non-existent, which I was really expecting. I've been to the Kimberley in Australia, and I have been literally eaten alive. I've never known anything like it. So yeah, compared to Australia, it's awesome. And no flies there either. Not loads of flies like you get in Australia.
I've seen some videos on like Ricky Mack and his like the flies that they have there. Like it's just ridiculous.
You've never known flies until you've been to Australia. Honestly, you just can't believe where they all come from.
Maybe I won't come to your house now, Frizy, because I get eaten alive over here, and we don't particularly have many. So I'm not asking you what you keep. For someone like Dan who's interested in keeping a pair of tree monitors, and we were talking about obviously bigger is better and gives it options and choices. What would you recommend for a pair of Macraei?
See, I keep stuff pretty separate from the most part of the time, and then bring stuff together for breeding, and then separate it again. I know a lot of people don't do it that way. I'm just going to say what I use. I used 4 foot wide, 4 foot high, 3 foot deep. I think it could be bigger. It'd be lovely to be bigger. That seems to be working pretty well for me, but bigger is always better. I think that 3 foot deep is super important. I wouldn't recommend anything 2 foot deep. That's just my personal. I just think it's too narrow. So I prefer to go like a 4 foot cube, or like I said, a 4x4x3, or maybe even wider, like a 6x3x4, rather than a super tall one, like an 8 foot tall by 2 foot deep. I just don't like that 2 foot deep. It just doesn't do it for me.
No, I agree. The more I'm keeping monitors, the more I realise that 3 foot deep is a.
I wish I'd gone 4 foot deep. There's no reason. I don't know why I had it in my head. I think it's when I was keeping stuff inside before, and 3 foot's hard to get through a door, obviously.
Yeah.
I could have gone 4 foot deep, and now I'm looking at them going, yeah, I should have just gone 4 foot because I got the space. So that annoys me now every time I go in there. But mine are also the adult tree monitor cages are 4 foot high because I got 4 foot cages underneath. So it sort of makes them 8 foot. It's not giving them the space of 8 foot, but they can get up a bit taller, which I think is pretty important.
Yeah, I've been contemplating, because I need to buy a new enclosure for my Praesinas, because I'll be soon to having a pair at some point. No rush, but I was contemplating 6 long, 6 tall, 3 deep, or 6 long, 3 deep, and then only 4 tall, but putting them 3 foot off the floor.
Yeah, I think both of those, I'd be happy with either one of those. I mean, that depth, until you've kept that depth, it's like a game changer almost. It just feels a lot bigger. 2 foot's just too small for like a 2 foot lizard to turn around in 2 foot. Doesn't make sense. They can obviously go up and sort of corner to corner, but when you start doing stuff deeper, that's what I'm all about, really. Like I said, if you can go 3 foot as a minimum, 4 foot's lovely. I've kept 4 foot cubes for adult tree monitors for them. They were really smart. And like I said, the tallness thing's good because you get more of a gradient up to down, which is excellent. But then you're talking about sort of humongous cages. And if you haven't got them right, they can be as bad as a small cage. If you're not keeping the thermo gradient going there, you could have a 16 foot tall cage, but if the bottom 8 foot isn't usable, then you're left with exactly.
Yeah, if you end up too cold, then like my room sits at 26, 28 degrees for 8 months of the year. So for the most part, perfect. But when it comes to winter, my room gets down to like 14. So I've got some work to do. So obviously there's a balance. So yeah, you got to juggle it around. I'm just trying to fit what I have with what I've got. Yeah. Like 4 foot deep, I've gone 6 tall, 6 wide, 4 deep for that mangrove enclosure, and that's a fucking big enclosure.
Yeah, definitely.
Just purely because the depth, 6x6 is still nice, but that 4 deep internal measurements as well makes it. Especially she's not as long as my Praesinas, so it makes a big difference.
Yeah, like I said, I'd be happier with like what I keep mine in 4x4x3 deep. is better to me, or feels better to me personally, than 6 by 4 by 2.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that seems to be the go-to answer. Like, I'll be honest again. My Prasinus currently is in a 5 tall, just by himself. It's just him, 5 tall, 4 wide, 2 deep, and it's just too small. It just is too small.
I've got a because I've got to swap the males around because of the way I keep them separately. Sometimes it overlaps if 2 aren't breeding, basically. But I've got this. I think it's 4 by 4 by 2, basically, like that. And it just, if it was deeper again, it'd be excellent. But you just put in a 2 foot, and it's like, oh, I need to get that lizard out of it quick, sharp. Luckily, it doesn't have to stay in there very long usually. So yeah, that 3 foot deep is pretty important.
What's your favorite monitor, and what's your favorite Aussie monitor?
That's a proper question. That is, Frizy.
We're an hour and a half in, bang on, and you just ruined the podcast.
Nice. There's too many. My favorite.
What's the first thing that pops into your head? Just the first one, because I've had one that's popped into my head. I don't know if it's the right answer or not, but
yeah, I think we were speaking to this about before, between keeping and then finding the wild. I've got this real issue with Glebo Palmer. I mean, they're an awesome monitor. They're pretty elusive. I nearly broke my ankle trying to photograph one once, basically, and I didn't actually get the picture. So that one really is like top of my list. If I was going back to Australia, it wouldn't be Keith Horneye first. It would be Glebo Palmer to get that one ticked off. I mean, they're a cool monitor, man. They are seriously. They're just somewhat different. They're really elusive. Yeah, they're pretty awesome. So I'd probably go Glebo Palmer, but then you've got so many in Australia. There's every region. I'd have to split it down into sort of what's my favourite one from the Pilbara, what's my favourite one from the Kimberley, what's my favourite one from there, because there's so many different biotopes. Maybe that's a cop out answer, but
I will send you some pics and videos of a recent trip to. Not even going to try and pronounce it.
That's the Murchison. I've actually been to the Murchison to find them. Couldn't turn me up. I had nothing, but we'll get into it maybe in another podcast, the Australia stuff. Yeah, nothing but problems. Every single time I go looking for cordial lineatus. The last time that happened, we bought a car in Australia, and the air conditioning belt broke as I was on my way to the Murchison. And it was squealing like mad, and it got really hot really quickly. I was like, again, I'm going to have to drive through their range and not find them. So, yeah. A lot of people find, like, I think Frizy found quite a few of them. They're not that hard to turn out. Yeah. I found a presser, which is like the skink that lives sort of with them. But, yeah, the Cordos are another one I need to tick off, but not as much as Glebo Palmer.
He's Frizy's a very bad person to be friends with, because the amount of like lizard porn that he sends you.
Oh mate, yeah. Same with Ricky. I mean, I went herping with Ricky before he was famous, and that guy, I think he was 17 years old. He took us around the Pilbara, and it's like, oh my god, the stuff that he just could see and all the rest of it is just insane. He was so much information from that guy. But like I said, he's super famous now. So.
For people wondering, Chris has agreed to do a round 2 at some point where we're going to talk into the Australian stuff. So we're going to keep it relevant to the Indonesian for now. Just a random question, then we're going to get into some photos, guys. What do you think of reptile shows?
Ooh, they're not getting any easier, are they?
No.
I attend reptile shows. I always have, especially with the shop. I think they're good. In some ways, and they're bad in others. For people looking in at a reptile show, I can't think of any worse way to represent the hobby than what, if you don't understand that those things are there in those boxes for a short amount of time, they're going home to a lovely cage and we all care about them. But if you're an anti looking in, it's pretty bad, isn't it? Sometimes I look and I'm just like, oh my god, this is not doing us any favors. I think it's really good in other senses. You get to meet loads of people. There's always something there that I'm surprised to see. It's like, oh, I couldn't even believe these are in the UK, for example. And then that tenfold when you go to places like Ham, you're like, oh my god, I've never even seen that. I don't even know what that is. So for that side of things, it's really good. And then it sort of like gets people together. As a community, it's also always nice to chat to people you haven't seen for years. There's people I've dealt with the shop sort of back in the early 2000s. I always see at these reptile shows. So in that sense, it's nice. I just think sometimes they're a bit too public. and they could be done a bit different. And then maybe just the way we're portraying these things at the show isn't a good look. I mean, stuff in tubs and stuff looks pretty bad. If you think, oh my God, someone's going to take that home and keep it in that tub, it's not good.
No. Right, guys. Any other questions? Drop them, and I'll come back to you now and then. But we're going to try and figure out how to do some jiggery pokery, and we're going to add this to the stream. So we have some photos, and I'm going to disappear now. You'll all see me, and also Chris is going to disappear because I'm going to put us onto full screen. Right. If you want me to zoom into a certain one, Chris, just shout.
Let's start with those top ones. So that top one, those top two, basically, that was 5 minutes from arriving in Batanta. I was welcomed with some kids, and one of the hunters, and Nerdin was like, he's got a Macraei in that bag. I was like, excuse me? He's like, yeah, I think there's 2 in that bag, actually. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, well, that's the trip sort of almost successful already, and I've been off the boat for 5 minutes. So yeah, that's a couple of Macraei there as soon as I got off the boat. Unfortunately, on the other side of things, that is what they're being kept in for up to 2 weeks, sometimes before they're even exported to Sarong. So every time I'm going over there now, it's sort of trying to make them, keep them a bit better. Like I said, in a bag for 2 weeks like that with no water sometimes is not good. You can see why they come in sort of so emaciated when they get to us.
Yeah, you're trying to how are you trying to educate that? Are you basically leaning it towards them? It's more money for them if the animals are healthier, or?
Yeah, I mean, they actually the big thing what I really want to get over, they actually do care about the lizards. Or for the guys that I met were super passionate. I was showing them pictures of like the lizards we kept and bred. I showed them some of Julian's Macraei babies, and they were just almost a tear in their eye. They don't actually, or they didn't realize, these lizards they catch would go all the way to England, America, and all these other places. They sort of see it as it stops in Sarong, and that's as far as they really thought about it. And then showing them these pictures of the eggs and all the rest of it actually got them excited. They're like, oh, maybe we can actually start getting some and breeding them, and you could help me breed them, which would be an amazing thing, really. I know they've done it with a few other species. If you can actually start breeding them in situ, I mean, that's like a dream, really. But yeah, they do care about them, but there's just no education. I mean, that lizard to them is money that they can't get anywhere else. Apart from that, in that village, like I said, the options are like logging, which is illegal, and then they're living off the land, so they're sort of catching fish and stuff for food. So if someone's going to come and give them, to us it's £30, to them it's a vast amount of money. That's going to last them 2-3 months from just one lizard. So it's hard. You just got to keep going over there and picking away at it, really. Like I said, they've got this passion, or a few of them definitely had this passion of wanting to keep them better. And then they were sort of getting the idea of, I was like, just don't try and collect them from the same area. If you could just make it more sustainable by moving locations, I know it's going to be a bit more cost for you guys to take the boat a bit further, but you're not going to wipe out that population. And then unfortunately, the older guys that used to be the Macraei hunters are like, yeah, we're scared that our grandchildren aren't going to get to see these anymore. We can remember when they were in Amdui, their village, just in the trees, and they've seen the decline. But like I said before, it's easy for me to go over there and just say, oh yeah, you need to stop collecting these lizards, and they're just like, well, this is the only way we can make some extra money to feed our families, so you can't take that away from them. It just needs to be more sustainable. And like I said, if more people do sort of trips over there, I mean, the whole of Raja Ampat has got some endemic bird species, birds of paradise, and people are paying thousands and thousands of pounds to go over there and photograph these birds of paradise, and they make good businesses. They set up homestays where people, you can see the red bird of paradise here, you can see the other ones over here, and then it brings people to their village. Everyone sort of benefits from them because they're buying food from the village, cigarettes, whatever else it is, and then that's the way they'll start protecting the lizards, because they want more people to come over there. Unfortunately, because it's a lizard maybe, and it's not as popular as like the birding community, people just haven't started doing it. But I think that'll change. Like I said, I'm trying to be pretty open, help get people over there, set something up with the guys over there to start doing it. And then, like I said, me and Ben were talking about getting help from the government over there to sort of set stuff up like they have with the birds of paradise, and sort of get the ecotourism going for them.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, a lot of people, I know Dylan from Animals on Home talks about this a lot, but I think a lot of times people assume that these guys on the ground are monsters and they're trapping these animals. But if you put yourself in their shoes, like you say, if all of a sudden you can catch this lizard that's just in your back garden, you're going to get paid 3 months worth of work.
Yeah,
like for them, it's like a no-brainer. And
for us to go over there and take it away from them is just insane. It's just, you can't do it.
But it wouldn't happen. And yeah, go on.
And like I said, my view before I went over there was we've had enough blue tree monitors come out of the wild, 3,000 in 10 years or whatever the number is. We need to stop now. There's enough. I think we've had enough of a chance to sort of establish bloodlines and get them breeding over here. Luckily, in the last few years, that is happening more and more, which is good. But I don't want to see these guys sort of be without any money. So you need to give them another option. You can't just go over there and say, stop collecting lizards. They'll just be like, what do you mean? You need to be like, can you stop collecting lizards? Because I'm going to get more people to come over and see them, and you can take them out and make your money that way. But, all it is to them is money, unfortunately. They care about the lizards for sure to a certain point, but if it's between the lizards and their family, like anyone, which one are you going to choose?
Family, yeah. And like you say, it's not their job to stop collecting. It's almost us as a hobby's job to turn around and give them the alternative.
Yeah. That's what I mean. There was like when I first went over there, it was like I wish they would just stop, because we've got enough. I still believe we've got enough in captivity to start these lines going up. The guilt sort of come in is because these sort of people become my friends, and like Nerdin's my family now. That you can't just take an income away from them. You got to sort of, you feel obligated to educate them in the best way you can to sort of preserve it over there. But there needs to be another option. Unfortunately, money comes down to it, because apart from the lizards in that particular village, they're not getting any extra income. And then the other source of income that they could possibly get is logging, which they were big into, which would be detrimental, not just the blue tree monitors, but everything over there. Yeah. So.
Well, it's like us. Like if we're employed and we get let go unjustly, we get redundancy money. We're paid in compensation. So we can't expect them to just quit their job and then absolutely have nothing like back, you know?
Yeah, like I said to them, they're teetering on the edge. If they make them CITES 1 tomorrow, then that's going to be gone to them anyway. So it'd be nice to get something set up as a contingency plan. I think the big pipe dream would be getting bred in situ, so they could still get an income from the lizards that way, or even better for me and probably everyone else listening would be people going over there and then just leaving them in the wild completely. That picture you just scroll down to there, Paul, is literally that one that come out of the sack. So you can see how happy I was. Again, that was 5 to 10 minutes from stepping on Batanta. So that was sort of mission success already. Yeah.
No, literally, like you say, you get there and you're like, right, these animals are probably really rare. Looks like it's a young male, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you can see that. But you must be like, I don't know if we're going to find any. So, oh, hello, Mr. Macraei.
I was just gobsmacked. I mean, a little bit of backstory. We got the boat from Waigeo to Batanta, and it was super overcast. And me being stupid Englishman, didn't put any sunscreen on, didn't wear a hat, thought it was completely fine because there was a nice cool breeze going there. When we stopped in Batanta, I had full-on sunstroke. I've got sunstroke there in that picture, and quickly put my hat on, as you can see, once we'd stopped. So I was feeling pretty rubbish at that point anyway, so it was a nice little pick-me-up. But yeah.
You got the blue ready to get the blues.
Yeah, and blue glasses as well, because everything was blue, and a blue bag actually.
I mean, there's a song in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So is this where you were living, in little tents like this?
Yeah, so with my sunstroke and my shell shock from that first lizard, that's the boat that I rented on the right-hand side there. That was the sort of boat for the whole trip. We had a captain and like a first mate basically, but that's what I hired, and that's the one we have to go across sort of open ocean to get to Batanta. It was a good boat, to be fair. When everything was calm, it became a bit scary when things got a bit choppy. And then that one on the left is the tent set up. So the guys themselves have got particular routes set up. This was one of the areas that was 5 minutes literally from Amdui, which is what I was saying before. They have become locally extinct in Amdui village. But if you move sort of 10 minutes boat ride to the right or left of the village, you'll still find him, the Macraei. And like I said, we just set up a camp basically. The guys actually had wooden huts. I think we've got a few pictures a bit later. Where the hunters stay when they go out on these missions to find the Macraei. They've got sort of different spots set up, and they've already cut a sort of route through the jungle. But me and Nerden just had tents, and that was set up just there.
Yeah.
So this is a couple of hunters on the left there. That's Eddie, likes to be called. I was showing them Burns' book on tree monitors. That's they were just mind blown. That was a really nice experience actually when I sort of first got there, got that book out, and their minds were literally blown. They were flicking through the book, naming all the different islands where they'd seen the different colors of tree monitors, and then when it got to like the eggs and stuff, they were just like, oh my god, we just like, how, why is this happening? Again, on the right, the guy on the floor, that's the first mate, and then it's the two hunters next to me. Those guys don't speak a word of English, which is fair enough. I'm sort of trying to learn some Indonesian now, so that's why you can't just go over there basically, and just start doing your needs. Sort of that a guy that can translate for you, and that's into reptiles helps as well.
Right, let's see what else we've got. I mean, I've flicked through these photos anyway, but already it looks amazing.
There's a few bugs for you there. So those millipedes on the left I couldn't believe how many there were. It's one of those things when I got there, the hunters pointed one out, and they saw how like excited I was about it, and they were like, you could almost see them say, oh, you're going to get bored of that really quickly if that's
really?
Yeah, they were literally, honestly, by the end of it, I think we were seeing like 5 every sort of 2 steps. It was ridiculous. They are absolutely everywhere. Obviously just living in that leaf litter. This was actually annoyed that one, so you can see the secretion coming out of it. I didn't hold any, but I'm told they're actually pretty nasty. And then on the right hand side, being in Australia, they've got ants of all different descriptions, pretty evil ones. And so I set the tent up, and within 5 minutes, found out I'd set it up right next to a load of leafcutter ants. So they were pretty good, to be fair, because it started raining almost all of a sudden, and all the ants sort of went into the top of the tent and actually left me completely alone, which I don't think the Australian ones would.
No. Oh man, there you go.
So again, that was just mine and Nerdin's tent on the left where we set up our first camp. And then the one on the right is the ones that the hunters made just from local wood. They set up different camps basically for their different areas. It's pretty impenetrable most of Batanta because it's quite steep and obviously thick jungle. They make routes through, which is good for the Macraei in some way because there's some areas I just don't think you'd be able to get to, and hopefully there's obviously the Macraei staying in those sort of areas. But yeah, they've got these sort of makeshift huts, whatever you want to call them, set up.
Yeah. Dinner served.
Yeah, you've got to get pretty used to eating instant noodles and rice, and that's 3 times a day, which is okay for like the first 3 days, and then that really starts to grate on you. On me particularly, I didn't want to see another bit of rice or another noodle by the end of it. By the end, I was actually getting. We went to another village in Waigeo, and I was like, "Is there anything else?" And they were like, offered me sweet potatoes, just boiled sweet potatoes. I was like, "Yeah, I'll take that all day long." So living on sweet potatoes, I literally couldn't eat another piece of instant noodle rice. We actually got some eggs there as well. But yeah, that's the Indonesian. That's pretty staple. 3 times a day. Nasi goreng, which is like rice and egg every single day, every single meal, and they seem totally happy with it.
That's pretty much my diet. And chicken, but that is pretty much my diet. Obviously, and comfort like Lucozade and chocolate, but for the most part, chicken, rice, and egg is all I eat. Yeah. This is the clayey ground.
Yes, I've got a video on the Instagram which people can have a look at where I've actually got a snake hook and I'm actually hitting the ground, but that is pretty much throughout Batanta where it's not leaf litter or under the leaf litter. It's that sort of ground. It's like this super hard clay that I just don't think the monitors can dig into. The crabs give it a go where you get more near to the beaches and seas where they're living in it. It gets a bit softer there, but the eggs, because of the tide coming in, the eggs would just get completely flooded. So I just don't think they're just not as far as I think, they're not doing them in the ground sort of thing.
No. There you go.
Yeah, that was pretty standard. 92% radiant humidity, 27, 28 degrees Celsius. was pretty much what it was the whole time I was there. Like I said, I've never been anywhere it's humid. All my Australia trips have been, when you get sort of the Darwin and stuff, it gets pretty humid, but nothing like that. That was just insane. And just sweat, just constantly sweating. It's hard work. It's the hardest herping I've ever done. Has been in Batanta for sure.
Just a question on that relative view, because I know we touched on it a little bit earlier. Yeah. Do you think these monitors are, how can I word this? Do you think these monitors are loving this 92%, or do you think they hide away in little pockets at times, or do you think this is pretty much just their bread and butter?
I just don't think they can get away with it. It sways between, from what I can speak to nerd in, and if you look on the weather apps, it's like 80% to 95, and then depending on the temperature, obviously, it just goes up and down between that. But it's constant of like 80% humidity. There's no way of getting around it. They've obviously evolved just to deal with it. Yeah, so I don't think they're hiding from it. They just got used to it. And even myself, after like 9 days of being there, you become acclimatized to it somewhat. It's just, like I say, it's such a shock from England to that. We just don't get anything like that ever, I don't think.
No, my room. Humidity. Well, my room's 27 degrees and 60% relative humidity, and that's heavy enough, let alone 30% more.
Yeah, and like I said, keeping stuff at that in captivity, I just think it's maybe like spikes of that would be okay if you could let the cage dry out. I think that'd probably be really good. I'm keeping some rising Gary a bit more humid. Some of the juvenile ones I've bred, and they seem to they're shedding really well. They look really bright. So there may be something into that. But like I said, I keep the adults a lower percent humidity, and they're doing just as fine. So there's obviously a range. But yeah, you don't want to be keeping them really humid. You don't want to be keeping them really dry. And then I've got misting systems, which was another thing actually bringing back every single day while I was there. It rained for some part of the day, and before I went, I'd actually turn my misting system off just because they were doing all right without it. But as soon as I come back, that goes on. Literally straight back on, and that's on for like 5 times a day. I'd sway it a little bit sometimes. But yeah, 5 times a day, not for ages, because obviously the cage has got to dry out. But they've got to have, I think it's, if you're not hand misting them, I think it's taken away from just what they're getting in the wild to give them no misting. I mean, I've kept them for periods with no misting, and they did all right. I just think you're taking something away from some of the so natural. Get a mister, either a hand misting each day. I've got one of those Mist Kings set up, so I'm just using that.
Yeah, I do everything by hand. I need to get onto the misting system, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice picture on the right. So that's a good toilet over there. Obviously no flush, and there's a huntsman sat right there, which is the reason Alicia hasn't been on any of these trips. Which is my girlfriend. It's a strong no from her. Australia was okay. She didn't see too many spiders over there, but yeah, I mean, they don't do anything. They're literally, that guy was there at some part of that toilet every single day, and he didn't bother me. He was absolutely fine. And like I said, no flushing toilet or anything, but that's pretty standard for most parts of Indonesia. You sort of just get some water and flush it down yourself.
Yeah, I'd be ruined with Crohn's disease over there.
Yes, mate. Yeah, possibly.
That's my whole plans and hopes and dreams gone now.
I mean, just get really good at flushing it down yourself, I think. I mean,
working on building sites. I'm used to it, working on building sites, not having flushable toilets.
Yeah, mate, it's no worse than that. Honestly, I worked on building sites as you have, and it's literally no different to that. It's the fine, but for some people that are not used to it, it could be a bit of a game changer.
So just a quick question. So little and often spraying rather than one big spray a day, you recommend?
Yeah, that's how I do it. I even give them a spray during the night as well. Sort of raise up, nothing too major. You don't want it getting really... problem is, like, wet and cold is a bad thing. Wet and hot when it dries out. But yeah, if I was just spraying them for long periods, my cages or my vivs just wouldn't dry out. So yeah, I think little and often's pretty good. I think the longest I have them on for is like a minute at a time, but mostly it's like 30-second bursts. This is something like nicer accommodation we stayed at. These are like the homestays that certain villages around Batanta have got stayed up. I mean, if you can't be happy with that view, and I mean, you've got a mattress on the floor and that toilet, but apart from that, you get up each day, and the amazing thing is you sit on that veranda there, and across from there, that is where Macraei, where that sun's setting. You know they're there, which sort of gives you this big boost of it's pretty amazing.
I can only imagine, mate. Literally.
So that's just another on the left hand side. That's just the homestay where we stayed, and us with the boat with Nerdin, just there. And then on the right, a lot of people, I don't know if people realise how they're actually catching the Macraei. That stick in his hand, that's called a gancho. It's like a long bamboo pole, basically, with a little noose on the end. I think we got some pictures a bit later on of the actual noose. But yeah, it's super long, and they're climbing meters and meters up into the trees. I need to take some measurements of the actual sizes of them, how far they were going up, because it's pretty hard to gauge. But it was pretty high. It's like taller than a standard sort of 2-story house in England, with that pole, and then catching a Macraei at the end of it.
It's pretty mad, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so dense, man.
Yeah, that's pretty typical sort of habitat. You can see there, you see where it's like opened up. There's more sunlight with the smaller trees almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Them sort of areas is where the hunters wanted where the Macraei come in during the day, and that's the easiest place for them to catch them, basically. It's a bit lucky on the hunter side that they do this thing of coming from the taller trees down into these small trees to bask and hunt and forage, and that's when they can get hold of them. Because like I said, the tall trees, we watched one come down from it into the smaller trees, and they were just like holding back. We watched this thing for about 20 minutes until it went into one of the smaller trees, basically. But at any point, the guys were saying, yeah, it can just go back into the taller tree and it would be gone. That one on the right is just a big leaf. I don't know what species of tree it was or anything. But...
Look nice.
Yeah. So that's one of the guys on the left. That's Eddie with the Macraei. He's actually holding it out. I don't know if people can see it very well.
Oh, yeah, I can just about, yeah.
You go up a little bit, you can actually see the lizard there. And that was one of the taller trees that they were actually in. That's the one we caught that was coming down from an even bigger tree into like this medium-sized tree. And that tree there is called an itching tree. So they're pretty dedicated, because after that, he had a big rash all over his arms and was itching all day. And that's the actual tree on the right-hand side there where we found, that's like the bottom of the tree, basically, where it was found. But I couldn't see that lizard for probably 10 minutes while they were pointing it at me when it was coming down the bigger tree. I just literally couldn't see it. I had my camera out with a zoom lens on it. Yeah. I was just like, no way. And they spotted it probably 20 minutes before that, and they just been just looking at it, looking where it's going. They're so in tune to any bit of movement and sort of where they're going to be. It's insane.
Did you get much bamboo in those forests?
There is pockets of it, yeah. That's what, like I said, they're making those ganchos, which is the long bamboo sticks. That's where they get it from. And then they sort of straighten it over a campfire. So that's what they make it so straight, and then put a noose on the end of it. But yeah, there was pockets of bamboo, not everywhere, but pockets. That one on the left is a nice picture, but we haven't gone into it. My camera packed up. I've got it taken around Australia for 10 years and never had a problem with it. One day in Batanta, with the humidity and everything, it just gave up. So that is a phone picture I had to get on the left, and that was devastating. I was like, oh my God, the whole reason for coming here, one of the main reasons was to get some good pictures of these guys that nobody had before. And then literally on my phone, my Samsung phone, trying to get it to shoot raw. And unfortunately, I mean, with a camera, that would have been like probably the best picture I took. But it's just so blurry and rubbish. But I've got a new camera for the next trip, so it should be all right. And on the right, again, that's just another one of those millipedes.
Are they out and about in the day as well?
What's that? The millipedes?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just always just about. They're just moving about in the leaf litter. But I honestly can't tell you how dense they are. You get a side of the tree will have like 4 or 5 of them on.
That's mad.
Again, this was more to show like the leaf litter and stuff. I mean, pretty much everywhere you're getting that leaf litter compacting down. So if you're not using that in your cages, you've got to get it. I'm
going out tomorrow, and I'm taking a one-ton bag.
I hadn't done any before. I'd done it a little bit, and then I don't know why I was a bit worried about the bugs and stuff that were in it. But now I just get it, just chuck it in. And honestly,
I do it all the time in the mangrove cages. But I guess because in my head they're on the floor. Like, I don't care about get all the bugs and stuff. I'm really
Yeah,
not
normally
like
now,
that.
honestly, there was worms in it and everything last time I did it, and they all seem to be, nothing's caused any detriment to the monitors. I've been keeping it with a leaflet in there for like over a year now. So yeah, but yeah, it was everywhere. Again, those are the sort of trees you're getting them coming into, which that was a big shock to me. These little sort of pockets of trees, obviously when they're getting all that sunlight, so they can get a good bask on there, and then obviously a lot of insects are on those leaves, feeding on the leaves, and going in there. And luckily for us going over there, and obviously the hunters, they're a lot easier to catch in those littler trees than the massive ones.
So you find that they're more vertical, like coming up and down, rather than horizontal on these sort of branches then?
Yeah, for those ones, yeah. Once you get out of the canopy proper, as you want to call it, where they're roosting, so they're going there overnight, and then when they've had their basking, I spoke to the guys, and they cut off their days hunting at 3:00. So anything past 3:00, they think they've gone back into the bigger trees where they're obviously digesting food, and then they don't really bother coming back out. The ambients are pretty high there, so it's not like other places where they're coming back out to bask. They've sort of got their morning basking done, feed, maybe a bit more of a bask, and then that ambient staying pretty high, and then it stays pretty high at night as well. So that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and then 94% humidity and 27.5 degrees.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. You can't even fathom that, can you? Like my incubator is only 92% humidity in the tub, and that's like 94% outside.
Yeah, I mean that is on the floor, which boosts it up a little bit. We were still getting ambience of that. I mean, if you look at that ground on the left of it looks still pretty dry. Like I was saying before, and you were saying, does it trickle down? That most of it's quite dry, and then you get these, obviously where the leaflet is compacted more, it's getting a lot more humid, and then if obviously they got rain, it's getting more humid again. More leaf litter, super important. That's just a UVI, that's my horrible thumb that I had to deal with. I was pouring out iodine into that every single day. Basically, I'd injured my thumb on site 3 weeks before going, which was excruciatingly painful, but that nail actually started coming off. And then with that humidity and lack of washing and all the rest of it, is like we got to keep pouring iodine into that, and that's just UV reading. I took a few while I was over there.
So that 1.5, is that I'm assuming quite a dense canopy that you're.
Yeah. Like I said, it went down to 0, but then I was like trying to average it out. Obviously, I was on the floor, but they are coming down to the floor. It's obviously I went into like where the smaller trees were. I was trying to get it sort of the same by going into patches of sunlight, and I think the highest I got on the sunniest day was like 6. A lot of Indonesia, a lot of the time it's quite overcast. So they do get like breaks in the cloud, but then for a lot of it, it sort of lulls you into a false sense of security, and that UV does drop a bit because of the cloud cover.
Yeah.
I don't know what that lizard is on the left because I'm not very good with the garments, but the hunters thought I'd like to see it, so they caught one. I think it's some sort of forest dragon, but I stand to be corrected on that. They have got some really impressive forest dragons over there. I don't quite know the species of them.
Did you go swimming in that little?
Yes. Yeah, that's a pretty famous waterfall. If you type in Batanta into Google or something, that waterfall is going to come up. It's at the end of a load of mangroves. They've actually found this. It's a good one for you, Paul. They found Indicus there last time they were there. So that's the sort of habitat, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that water was amazing, and it was a chance to have a wash actually. So if you can see Nerdins there with his towel around him, and all the guys took that as a opportunity to have a bit of a wash.
It must be like a nice release.
They're pretty mental though. They went to the top of that waterfall and started jumping off into the bottom, which I didn't do because I don't think my travel insurance would have gone that far if they found out what went on.
I mean, they're climbing 2 stories up bloody.
Yeah, they don't care. More rice behind
Idyllic,
that.
mate. I can't wait. That's like a 5-course meal for me.
That is some sort of fish behind, which I did try. It was super, super bony. It doesn't affect the guys at all. It was so fishy for my palate. I mean, I'm not a big fish guy anyway, but if you're into fish, I'm sure it's absolutely lovely. It's super fresh. It was literally caught right outside. Yeah. It's not the cod and chips we're used to in England. That was my or one of the homestays that we've shown before. That's just sort of the mattress that you'll get given. I think that might be the hunters. I think mine actually had a mozzie net, which they obviously give you for the tourists, but the guys seem to be pretty immune to it. Like I said, there wasn't many mozzies over there, but for the tourists in the homestays, they do provide sort of mozzie nets. They get a bit of a help from the government to set up these homestays and make it a bit more habitable to sort of us Westerners. That one on the right is 3.5. That was the average, pretty much. I took loads of readings, and that's pretty much the average on sort of out in the open where we were finding these small trees. Was that sort of 3.5?
Is that roughly what UVR you're keeping in your enclosures on your basking spot?
Yeah, that's literally exactly what I'm keeping at. They can get a bit higher towards the UVs and get obviously higher, and then it goes on mine. It goes down to 0, so I'm giving them that sort of gradient of UV. But yeah, around that basking spot area, I'm doing 2.5 to 3.5.
Okay, yeah, mine currently are at, well, they can obviously go higher if they want, but my basking spots are currently around 4.
Yeah,
so it's slightly higher.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I wasn't there over there long enough to give you like a good average, but it's in between that from what I can see and how overcast it is over there. It's sort of in between that sort of range. That one on the left could be one of these hollow trees. It's a hollow tree. They might be laying their eggs. There's actually a crab in there, if you can see on the bottom. See him there?
Oh yeah, I see him. Yeah.
Those crabs, just like the millipedes, those crabs are absolutely everywhere, and that was a big shock. And I've got a few gears, so obviously perfect for indicus, perfect for peach throats, but maybe because they weren't just found. That was literally in the middle of the jungle where we were finding the Macraei. Would a tree monitor take one of those? Possibly. Definitely a smaller one, I would have thought. So that's something to think about. I think.
Yeah, probably, definitely. We're getting some termite mounds now.
Yeah, these were just the arboreal termite mounds that everyone sort of been speaking about, talks about. I mean, I can see if they were empty. I don't know. I don't know how bad the termites are. They're not aggressive like ants, I know that, but would they annoy the tree monitors enough to
I'd stop them laying, sort of.
Yeah, to stop them laying. There's big ones of those that are empty, and I think that is literally probably ideal for a tree monitor. But they weren't that common, so they weren't just not every tree didn't have one of those. It would be a few, and then you'd go a long way without seeing any more. So maybe the ones in that area are utilising them, but then, like I said, there's way more hollow trees and stuff for them to lay their eggs in, I think. And then speaking of the hunters, apart from that older guy, none of them had ever seen any tree monitor sort of hang around. I'm not to say that they don't. Like I said, it's a difficult one. Getting to know where these things lay is going to be a challenge. It's just, I think we can just rule out on the floor was the main thing I took from the trip.
So did you get a gauge of the texture and how hard these termite mounds were?
Yeah, somewhere on my Instagram again, there's one of me smashing one up with a snake hook basically, and they just sort of crumble, and they're very crumbly and they're not very hard, so they could definitely dig into them. But yeah, it's I wouldn't, like I said, I don't want to rule it out. Like I said, there's been that paper that's done. That stated that they were coming out of a termite mound, but I don't know how good that is. I'd like to source it back a little bit more to see, was it actually a Prasinus that was laying eggs, because there's lots of other lizards over there that are green. There's emerald tree skinks and stuff like that. So yeah,
is there a possibility that babies were just hunting rather than hatching?
Exactly that too. Yeah. Did he see him actually come out? We'll never know. Like I said, that old guy did definitely say he'd seen eggs in a termite mound, but it was a dead, abandoned termite mound. And then every time I speak to him about anything to do with termites, they'd sort of just laugh at me and just like, no, they're not. We don't think they're doing that.
Yeah.
Again, pretty typical habitat. You can see left and right there. It's pretty that's sort of habitat I had in my head when I was like, I'm going to go look for tree monitors. I expected it to look like that. Like I said, the small tree thing was a bit of more of a shock, because I thought we'd be looking up in these big trees. I'm glad we didn't just have to do that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty idyllic, to be fair, isn't it? Like,
yeah, awesome. Pretty wet in areas as well. So there was a lot of rivers and tributaries going out to like the coast. like I said, absolutely full of crabs, and that's where you're sort of getting your indica stuff, and occasional peach throats and stuff like that.
Soon come. I know there's pictures here somewhere.
You've been pretty good holding off on the indica.
Oh, mate, they're here for the tree monitor. It's not the bloody mangroves. It's just me on my own.
They're all awesome. They're amazing to see in the wild, as you can imagine.
One day.
Again, more typical habitat, where you got the pandanus type stuff on the floor. That, I don't know if I got a picture. I sent you the picture. There was a really common tree. I haven't been able to identify it. It's got like serrated edges. It looks a bit like an oak leaf, basically. But that was growing absolutely everywhere. I need to locate. I got a local name for it. I've tried to Google it, and it just doesn't come back with anything, unfortunately. But yeah, it was sort of everywhere. And then that's a trail, as you can see. Noding going down there. It's just because they've been there so much. It sort of makes these little trails. If you start walking left or right of that, it becomes super dense and just too hard.
Yeah. Did you find any, like, obviously not for the tree monitors, but was there any obvious signs of like regularly used tracks from like monitors on the ground or animals on the ground, or is it just like this? Or looking at this now, it's probably answers my question. No, because it's still
it's too hard. In Australia, that's like one of the best things. You go to like the red spinifex country and the red dunes, and you can see like guldi tracks and parenti tracks and all the rest of it. It's absolutely amazing. But yeah, I couldn't really see anything over there as far as that goes. It's just too dense, and I was trying not to slip over most of the time. Lucky I had that snake hook because it's slippy, and a lot of Batanta, like I said before, is really, really steep.
Yeah, it looks like you say in your head. If you picture it, this is what I would imagine in my head what they'd be living in.
Yeah. So these are like the bigger buttress sort of trees where they're roosting. Those ones have got like lots of hollows and cracks and stuff into them. So that's where they're sort of going at night for sure, it seems, and then sort of roosting and retreating into those maybe when it rains, etc. But then you've got these little pockets where they're sort of smaller trees where they're coming down to hunt.
Yeah.
And there you go there. So that's like the smaller trees again. Pretty interesting, like you said, they're really really horizontal, and then they got like the canopy at the top, and those branches at the top are super thin. Again, on my Instagram I've got a video of them sort of moving through the canopy, and it's a big adult male Macraei, and it's on these really, really thin branches just going through there.
So I'm a massive perpetuant of sticking skinny branches in, especially with babies. Now, I don't know how true this is, but like in my head, you know, when you keep like chameleons, people suggest putting smaller branches in and thicker branches in to build the muscle density and complexity of the hands.
Yeah.
I think it could be the same with monitors, because when I first put tiny little stick branches in with my little baby Prasinus, she would fall off them. But now she skates across them like they're nothing.
Yeah, for sure. Muscle memory almost, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's great enrichment, I think. So I think if in our enclosures, if we do vertical and horizontal, skinny and thick branches, I think then you're meeting all their clearly what they're doing in the wild.
Yeah, that's another thing I implemented, actually. I used to keep them fairly bare before I went on this trip, and now they're just rammed with absolutely everything. I've got no real spaces. Gives you that shade and light sort of gradient as well, and they've used it like all over the cage. It's just branches, bits of not just cork tubes and stuff. I was a big proponent before I went over there. I was just keeping lots of cork tubes and obviously big round things. Now they've got small sticks in there. Plastic plants at the moment, which annoys me because I really want to get real plants going in there. I think that's super important. If you can get that going, it's super beneficial for the humidity cycle. It just feels a lot better, but mine just destroy it. So
yeah, I've been quite successful with pothos, but other than pothos, like you say, mine gets destroyed.
Yeah. Again, that's one of the higher UV readings over there. Like I said, I think on that day it got to 6.5 possibly. But yeah, that was in direct sunlight basically. So as soon as you go in the canopy, it obviously drops down, and then it can drop down to nothing. And that one on the right is just Amdui, so that's where the hunter's village actually is. That's a abandoned homestay almost. It was someone that's basically started building it and then run out of money and stopped building it. But the guys in the village were like, you can set up your tent in there, which is pretty ideal for us.
Yeah, it's pretty slick, to be fair. Like, I'd go and, like, regardless of finding lizards, just staying somewhere like that for me would be fun enough. And yeah.
There you go. That's the same area with the tent pitched up there, which they all laughed at because like Nerd and stuff were just literally sleeping on the floor. They were just happy to have something overhead, but obviously me being a bit more bougie, set up the tent inside as well.
I wouldn't, but people in America call bougie basically just means like glamorous. We'll say that. I wouldn't class that as glamorous.
It is for them. That was right at the end of the trip. That was right at the end of the trip when we were dropping the hunters off, and we'd been obviously staying pretty rough up until there. So that was like, oh my god, this is 5-star now. Setting up a tent inside. Yeah.
Here we go.
So this is just a couple of the that's me and Nerdin on the left. He's like super instrumental over there. He's got a big history going back to like the 80s of helping people with the birds of paradise and Salvador and all sorts of stuff over there. Like I said, I believe he's the first guy outside of Batanta to actually see Macraei in the wild, which is pretty amazing that he's still around, still helping people out. And that's just one of the Macraei we caught there.
So how many in total did you find?
I think it was 5 over 6 days. I'd have to check my notes. One of the days we caught 2 in one day, which throws off the odds, and then one of the days we didn't catch any. So yeah, I think it was 5 or 6 in total, basically.
Was that 5 or 6 in hand, or is that all you saw?
Just more than that. There was more than that. That was in hand. We saw some in the trees, some that I didn't even see myself, so I can't claim those ones. And then one that I actually saw that nobody else had seen. So they didn't actually believe me. The hunters. And I was like, honestly, guys, they're like, no, I think it was Salvador. It was Salvador. I was like, oh, I'd be really buzzing if it was Salvador, but no, it was definitely Macraei.
They were like, listen, Mr. Bougie with your tent.
Yeah. You tell us there's no way you saw one and we didn't, is basically what they were saying.
Yeah.
That's a little Candoya boa on the left there. That was an amazing thing. Obviously, I'm into all reptiles, so I wanted to find snakes. The guys that catch the blue tree monitors are petrified of snakes. Literally, which is strange for that area. In other parts of Indonesia, obviously they're catching like the green tree pythons and stuff, but those particular guys were just like, nah, want nothing to do with that. I was holding it, telling him it was non-venomous, getting Nerdin to translate for them, and they just went white. As soon as I grabbed it, they were just like, what is he doing? Yeah, you can't touch that. There's a species over there called Macraei ikahika, which is like a small-eyed elapid, basically. It's pretty super venomous. So they just treat everything like it's ikahika, which is a good way to go, really, if you can't identify them. And yeah, it'd be sort of game over if they got bit by one of those ikahika over there.
Yeah, better safe than sorry as such.
More typical sort of habitat. Again, everywhere you go, there's that leaf litter. Sometimes it's a bit more thick than that. And yeah, sort of those are the sort of smaller trees mixed in with some of the bigger trees. But again, just pretty typical all through there.
I'm going, literally, there's a woods like not even 2 minutes from my house. I'm going 1 ton bag tomorrow.
Yeah.
96% humidity, man.
Yeah, that's ambient as well, because that's literally me holding it in the air. So that's and pretty cool if you look 26 Celsius there. So yeah, it's just relentless humidity. I can't think what that one on the left is.
It might be a video, and if it is, I'm not going to attempt to play it. Just where we are.
That might have been just a video of the general sort of area.
Yeah. And looking just quickly on that temperature and humidity, like it's similar to what we would incubate at. So as long as where they're finding it's dry, if that's their averages, the eggs can just sit out. They don't have to worry about burying the eggs because the environment is sort of idyllic.
Yeah, I know Julian's tried down to 26, which I incubate sort of 29.5. But I know he's had really good babies going down to 26 and really, really colourful ones as well. They just take a lot longer to hatch. Yeah. Just random bug on the left, obviously some sort of stag beetle type thing. They're fairly common. On the right is when I literally given up with everything. I was offered some biscuits and tea, and that tea and biscuits was literally one of the best things I've ever had. You appreciate food so much more when you've been on rice for 3 times a day. another fish over there, which I didn't eat because I'm not into fish, but it was a group of fish and probably absolutely lovely, but I just didn't fancy it.
Yes, I don't eat fish at all, so yeah.
And get some more. That's a gecko there eating I thought, a ridiculously large meal. It was a pretty big cricket. And he's gone there. I don't know the species. I think Giaporensis, but I don't know what the genus is. But yeah, pretty big meal for it to be taken down.
Sure, it's bigger than its head, as recommended in captivity.
Yeah, they don't listen to what we think.
Yeah, no one's taught him how to gecko, clearly. And what's all this loose substrate he's on as well?
Yeah. Fancy that.
And then
whip scorpion on the right. There was like a caveat sort of area. That's actually Waigeo, not Batanta anymore, where we looked for obviously Bomai. But yeah, that's a sort of a cave area. Obviously, there's just whip scorpions in there.
I'm just checking the chat. I don't think there's any questions as of yet. So if there are, sorry that I forgot about you.
Yeah, I feel sorry for anyone listens by audio, but I guess you're not doing the audio stuff just yet.
No, so not just yet. But when this is on audio only, guys, you need to come over to YouTube and watch. Because we've got some exclusive pictures, and to be honest, I think I forgot to monetize this before it went live. So people watching it now, you're watching this for free, and then all the rest.
Small bugs, some sort of cave cricket. That was that cave area again, and then some sort of grasshopper type thing. Don't ask me for the species. I'm no good. But,
no, I wouldn't have a clue, mate. There he is, Bougie Life.
Yeah, I can't remember which one that was. I had a burger and chips before we went to Batanta, and one again straight after at the hotel. So that's either the happiest meal I have, or that's my last meal before rice 3 times a day. The one on the right, that's one of my favourite pictures. That's me pointing out one of the Macraei that the hunters already showed me anyway. It's probably me actually pointing to, is it there, rather than there is the lizard. So yeah, that's one of the one I took the good pictures of, basically. Again, in a small tree. That tree is a jackfruit tree. I don't know. I think I've got a picture of the actual fruit. I think they're called durian as well, but definitely jackfruit. It's like a spiky fruit, basically.
My favourite photos are the ones Fee quite is into her photography. When she takes photos of me doing stuff, they always end up awesome. My favourite photos.
Again, that was after we caught that lizard in that jackfruit tree. That's the noose. It's pretty brutal, them getting noosed, basically. So as soon as they come down, I was like straight on to getting that noose straight off. It's pretty brutal around their neck, but they get them off pretty quickly. So do the guys, get them off pretty quickly, but you just don't want to put any sort of more added stress than we're already putting them in by catching them out of the trees.
Yeah. I highly doubt there's many other ways other than traps that would leave them there overnight. There's not really any other ways to catch them, I'd assume.
The quickest and most humane way, like I said, otherwise they'd be like trapping them, or like in some areas they like get their pea shooters and stuff and shoot them out of the trees and stuff, like silly stuff like that. Not in Batanta, but I've heard that in sort of other areas of the world. So yeah, it's pretty humane. That noose is on them for literally a minute while it goes from the top of the tree. They pass it down to the guy on the bottom. So the way they work it, there's usually 2 of them, someone that goes up the tree and then someone that's keeping an eye on the lizard. The amount of times I just literally lost where the lizard was, but this guy managed to keep his eyes on the lizard at all times, directing to the guy where it is, up a bit, down a bit, and then as soon as he's noosed it, straight down to the guy on the ground, who obviously unnooses it and gets it usually straight into a bag to go back to the village.
Yeah, it's just mad how they've I guess adapted. Here we go. How they've adapted to just because obviously this is second nature to them. You know, they're so in tune with their environment.
Oh, ridiculous! Yeah. So this is the at the end of the gancho, which is that bamboo pole. That's just made by a bit of carton. Like they do boxes. We get it over here. That white carton stuff that holds boxes together. So it's plastic basically, and then they just make that loop out of it and wrap it around, and it seems to work pretty well.
And I'm assuming goes over the neck. Once the lizard runs, it pulls tight.
Yeah, so they actually pull it. The lizards are pretty oblivious. They're actually shocked, which was different to what I found in Australia with the Varanus over there. They were pretty wary for the most part. But these tree monitors seem pretty oblivious and would actually stand there pretty much and look at the noose coming towards them, and then not make a run. Where a lot of, like I said, the Australian stuff, as soon as you get in any sort of distance, they're just off. So yeah, they're pretty easy to capture, unfortunately, because they sort of just stand there, look at it, and go, "What's that?" And by the time they've had the noose around the neck, and they sort of lift up the noose, so it tightens around the neck. And then if they obviously struggle against it, because it's that sort of that noose, it's just going to get tighter. Like I said, quickly down, take that noose off, comes off really easy. It just loosens off basically.
I guess that would lead more to the fact that they rely on camouflage, though, if they're not running.
I think they're just so oblivious of, like I said, apart from birds of prey and stuff, I don't think they've got too many other lizards and stuff. It's just so alien to them that they almost seem shocked when they're getting caught. They're just so easy. And compared, like I said, to other Varanus I found in the wild, they would literally just sit there. That's a few of the bugs we found over there. It's a weird looking grasshopper-y / catty type of thing, where they were sort of everywhere.
Paul's monitors. Would you pay to feed wild lizards? Attraction to be potentially harmful from Paul's monitors. Would you pay to feed wild lizards? No, I don't think I'd pay to feed a wild lizard, purely just because then I don't like the idea of the lizard associating humans with good stuff. I'd rather wild be wild. They
sort of become not wild at that point, don't they? If they're just there to be fed. I know, like a lot of the water monitors in Singapore and that are just so fat, and where they're just getting fed scraps and stuff, and you can sort of guarantee to see them. It's not really finding them. I wouldn't class that.
I'm lucky enough to have animals in captivity, so I think just seeing them in the wild would be more than enough for me.
Yeah, even not catching them. Towards once I got like some really good photos, we spent more time just looking at them in the treetops, and I wanted to see actually how they're moving around and stuff rather than just catching them each time. So it's okay catching them, but you've then made it totally unwild. I mean, you get some really cool pictures, but then some of the best pictures I took, my favorite pictures are the ones where it's literally just in situ of the lizard doing its thing. Like I say, it's wicked to get those real nice shots, but it's also nice to see them, just walking around in the treetops.
I've misread it. Would a pay to feed wild lizards attraction be potentially harmful? We answered the question inadvertently.
For sure.
So my bad.
I read that totally. I read that same as you.
Yeah, my bad. So just on that then, as we're flicking for a couple of these, what is their sort of natural behavior like? Because obviously we've said they start out in these bigger trees, they come down to this canopy, which we're assuming these open moor canopies, thinner branches, which we're assuming they do to bask and hunt.
Yeah.
Is that pretty much just the life? Was there any quirky, unique behaviors that you saw? Or
no, because we were just seeing it for such a snippet. It's too hard. And then during obviously the start of the trip, the hunters were really eager to actually catch the lizards. So they were like, should we catch? And I was trying to let them. Obviously, you've got the risk of if you don't catch them, they could just be gone within a second, straight up a bigger tree and off. So obviously, I was keen to get them in hand to get some good pictures that hadn't been taken before by anyone really. And then they were pretty keen to obviously. It's sort of pride for them to show you them hunting and all the rest of it, which was amazing, and sort of be able to document that was fantastic. But it's such a small snippet. It's like towards the end we were sort of waiting sort of 10-20 minutes watching them go around the trees, and they're just foraging. They didn't seem too bothered by us at all until they sort of were caught. That's why I say it's quite interesting compared to other monitors, because other monitors I've seen in the wild, as soon as they know they've seen you, they are just fixated on you, and they'll let you get to a certain distance and then they're just off. But yeah, to sort of seeing what they're up to, it's such a small snippet of their life. I don't know how you'd ever document. You'd need sort of a David Attenborough style thing, documentary maker to go over there and sort of sit there for weeks on end. With lizards, I think it's hard. Like I said, they're in and out of trees all the time. It's not that predictable.
You'd need like some sort of silent drone that they become accustomed to that could just follow them around, because otherwise they just don't see it. How it's feasible.
And then at that point, if they notice that drone is something a bit different, are you affecting them anyway? But the sheer act of sort of watching something, if it knows it's being watched, then you've changed how it's going to act.
It doesn't act naturally, yeah, of course, yeah.
You have to use the toilet. 2 seconds, Paul.
No, you're fine, man. If I find anything cool, I'll stop. Actually, let me catch up with the chat. Right, where are we at? Hello, everybody. I've read it wrong. Yeah, right. I can't read. Turn into a wildlife safari park as ecotourism. Would birds of paradise still need to be introduced for this to be effective? I think it's a hard one. I think as soon as you start like interfering with wild, like Chris literally just said, it all of a sudden takes away from it being wild. But I mean, if it's saving a species, then here we go. One in a trap will stay on this. But I'm going to go out and get some leaf litter. But yeah, that's pretty savage. For 27 people, wow. I don't know how many likes we've got, but get the likes up, ladies and gentlemen. We have like peaked at like 35, and there's people are here for it. People are loving the treatment. Any more questions? Drop them in now. Ecotourism can be good, but it needs to be in moderation. Drop in the. You want me to get it? I want you to get what? What did I ask for? I forgot. I don't know what's going on. I have another drink. As we're asking, but yeah, this is a lizard. Savageness. Oh, there we go. We'll leave it there. Look at that. I can hear a noise. I'll go back up. Hello.
Hello. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Man. Literally, like, I get used to it because I sit here for like 4 or 5 hours, but
you're getting the Joe Rogan experience. How he sits there for hours, isn't he?
I don't know how I do it. Like every time I finish a podcast, I'm like, out of nowhere, my body's like, you need to use the loo. But yeah, I'm assuming, obviously, this is the third one.
Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, so that's where you can see the noose going around there. Like I said, it's not very nice, but it's not for very long. But that's sort of just a pretty good picture of one being noosed. And these are sort of the posed pictures I got once we caught them. So these aren't obviously in situ. These are ones I've set up to take good photographs of. That was the first one we found on the left and right there. So I'm pretty happy with those. Unfortunately, like I said, the next day my camera screwed up, and then I got one more chance when my camera was working. But as a photographer, it's brutal to get camera issues. There's nothing you can do about it. There's no Canon shop or anything you can go and get it fixed. It's like, oh my god, is the only picture. I mean, I would have been happy, to be honest, to get that one shot there on the right. I'm pretty happy with that. That would have been trip made, but anything more than that was a bonus. But like some of the ones we caught a bit later on were just stunning examples, and it would have been nice to get some like really, really good photos of them. Like I said, I can't complain. It's a good picture, I think.
Two questions. Question one.
Yeah.
Did you just put him there and he was so like, oh, wary that you could get some snaps, then he ran off?
Yeah, so there's a thing called, what photographers call it, sort of breaking the spirit. So if you handle any lizard for any sort of, not for a prolonged period of time, for like 2 minutes, they become pretty relaxed that you're not going to eat them. And most of them, sometimes they don't, but most of the time they allow you to pose to get a few good shots, and then they're usually straight off. That one was pretty bad behaved, and to be honest, they're probably the easiest monitors I've ever had to photograph with these tree monitors. I mean, they sort of got used to you pretty quickly, a bit like our captive ones. Once you get them out of the vivarium, they're like pretty skittish for a while, and then they just sort of calm down. The same, so you can sort of use that to your advantage, set up, get some good shots. I'm not one for taking shots for like hours and hours, just stressing stuff out. I'll get some good shots and then let him straight on his way, basically. But a few of them did run off. I was able to get like one shot of it, and then it ran off. That one was pretty well behaved. It wasn't doing that good compared to some of the other ones we found. I think that was just a little, I can't remember if that's just a little female, but she was quite skinny at the tail base, a bit more like what we see in captivity. I think I got a close up. I sent you a bit further down, maybe.
Yeah, we'll have a check. But that's the third question. But the second question, coloration of the wild ones. One, how much variation, and two, what's it like in comparison to captivity?
I didn't really notice it until I got back, but then there's been these green back ones that people have been speaking about recently, and we definitely found one that was more of a greenish tint. Not that one particularly. That was closer to Amdui, which is obviously where the hunters go, which would have been the more typical ones we were seeing like years ago. So like when they first started coming in, they would have all been being collected from Iam and Amdui, which is by the village, and they seem to be blue. The further north around the island we started to get those ones with like the greenish tints. I don't know I wouldn't want to say that they're all coming from there. That's where most of the hunting's coming from now, and they seem to have this greenish back thing going on. I didn't really notice it in the wild too much, but a few other people have said to me, "Oh, that looks like one of those greenback ones that are coming in." But yeah, the colours are just amazing. They're pretty variable as a species. I mean, that's quite a typical one. We found an old male, big male, that had a lot more black on it. Some have got more blue. I think there's a picture of probably the best pictures I took. That one had the really big spots. So that's just that tail base on the left there of that one. You can see how it's quite sunken in. Like I said, some of them were just like absolutely amazing weight on them. That one was probably one of the skinnier ones we found. We found two like that, I think, with that sort of skinny sort of tail base, and then the other ones were just like, oh my god, this can literally come out of a vivarium.
So do you think, based on that then, do you think for the most part tree monitors in captivity are about the right size, or do you think they're slightly chunkier than the wild ones?
I think the wild caught ones, or farmed, or whatever you want to call it, but basically wild caught, they seem to stay skinnier, and they're actually harder to get the weight on from what I found, where the captive bred ones, it's probably internal parasites and stuff like that, they get fat pretty quick, and you can ruin them really quick. I've come close with my female Risengary, where she took a year off where I just got too fat. It didn't seem that fat to me, but then if you look at a wild one, or one of the wild caught ones I got in, that's in good condition but just hasn't got that extra sort of weight going on, and yes, detrimental to breeding for sure, and it can't be good for the lizard. So on I err to go on the sort of skinnier side. But like I said, I don't know if I've got a picture on the Instagram. There's a video of this female, and it was just like perfect. It's like that could have been a captive bred one. You wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah,
I think that's oh, come.
I was gonna say this one looks other, like you say, other than I'm assuming this is the same one, but other than
same lizard, that one, yeah.
For the most part, it looks okay. Other than, like you say, the back end of it.
They're not like the emaciated ones we get from the importer sometime, because what's happened there is that lizard's then gone to Amdui, possibly sat there for 2 weeks, gone to a shipper in Sarong, and then got to the farm. And then what happens on the farm? Some farms are really good with them. Some farms just send them straight on.
Yeah.
Again, same lizard again. That I just can't believe what was going on at that point. I don't think it was just absolutely amazing.
Were they quite bitey, or were they not too bad?
No, the hunters treat them like they just couldn't believe I was holding them like this. And by the end, I got them holding them actually like that. Usually they just grab them behind the head, as you expect. Yeah, they weren't aggressive. They're more bemused at that point of what the hell's happened. I mean, these Macraei are probably some of the luckiest ones in Batanta, because they got to be caught, and then they got to be released sort of pretty soon after. I'm sure that will give them a good stead of not getting caught again, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully that. Because that's pretty much spot on. Once they're caught once, it's normally too late. They don't get a chance to learn.
That one on the left is just one being ganchoed there again, so the noose going around its neck. Just about to see it.
Yeah, if I click on it, it will just lose where
Yeah. I said pretty much all these pictures on the on my Instagram anyway, in sort of higher quality.
Link in description. Yeah, and just more. I'm going out tomorrow, and I'm getting some leaflets.
That leaflet is really important, but that's sort of pretty typical again. Sort of habitat on the floor. Some areas are more like that, which are a bit more bare with that clay sort of soil. Then you've got those rotten logs again, where they could be incubating their eggs, laying their eggs. So yeah. Again, that's just the Macraei on the left. You can just see them there, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think that's actually once we'd released it. So the guys wanted a picture of me, a picture of them with the gancho, in case we didn't get any more pictures like that. So it didn't just run off completely. It sort of went up to that tree stump and then just watched us basically. Like I said, a lot of the ones other monitors you get, like in Australia, they're off straight away as soon as you let them know.
Yeah.
All probably here.
Termite mounds.
Yeah, that one on the left there is a disused one. I think it might actually be the same on both sides. So it's got that hole in there. So they got sort of kookaburra type birds that nest in there. But I think that's pretty ideal if a tree monitor goes in there and uses that again. I don't know how well it would keep humidity. Like I said, the humidity is pretty constant there, so it might be all right.
Yeah, it might act as an insulator in a way, though.
I hope against you a bit.
So I have to ask, whereabouts did you find it? Inland or near water?
And that was pretty inland, actually, and that seems to be the case. But there was those tributaries or like small rivers running through that go out to the coast. So I think they're living in water, but not tied to water as much as the Indicus. They're sort of in these trees in the leaf litter. Speaking to the guys, they always find them sort of just open, sort of forested areas, searching through the leaf litter. But like I said, I think they're tied to water a little bit, but not as much. So they're going to use it and they're going to be near it, but not as much as the Indicus. All the Indicus we found was right next to water.
It's so strange because mine in captivity, I've only got one jobiensis, but my 6 mangroves aren't bound to water, whereas my Indicus, my jobiensis lives in the water.
Yeah, so the Indicus are by the water. I don't know how much. I mean, Ricky's just put one up. I don't know if you've seen his.
Yeah, mate, that's amazing.
Real, yeah. So those are literally in the water.
Yeah,
like I said, all the ones I saw were overhanging branches next to the water, and then I'm sure they're sort of looking for crabs and stuff along the shoreline. The peach throats definitely, they're going to, as you've seen in captivity, they're going to use water if it's there. But they seem, from what the guys were saying, that it's sort of open jungle sort of areas.
And how was this one? Was it feisty, wanted to kill you, or was it a bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the claws, they're super strong. That is one lizard that I couldn't pose. I literally got one picture of it and it was gone. That picture on the tree branch, and it did scratch me up a lot. Ridiculously strong, as you know, probably with your Indicus and stuff, compared to the tree monitors. They've got so much muscle on them. It's pretty interesting looking. I'm not too into peach throats, but those Batanta ones have definitely got a different look to them.
I think mine is a Batanta talking to a couple of... Mine's either Batanta or Wago talking to a couple of people.
But I didn't manage to get any from Wago. But yeah, they're a lot darker by the seams of it compared to like the ones we get called Sarong ones.
Yeah, we get a lot of high banding. These guys are more ocelli.
Yeah, a lot darker. But yeah, super strong lizard. But it was just out foraging sort of in the leaf litter.
It's quite a big one. Well...
Yeah,
depends. There he is. There.
Yeah. They were super worried. The hunters were super worried at that because they literally catch them usually and chuck it in a bag ready to export. They don't get as much money for peach throats as they do the tree monitors, but they will catch them for the trade. Same with Salvadori, and not so much Indicus. They don't really look for Indicus. These are sort of a bycatch of looking for Macraei. They're in the same habitat, so if they find one, they will catch them and bag them up and sort of send them out. They don't get anywhere near as much money for the jobiensis.
No.
That's just the same one again. Pretty cool pictures. Yeah. That one on the right's pretty cool. That's a silhouette of a Macraei right there. That's sort of what you get to see from the ground, and seeing that for the first time or even the 10th time is like unbelievable.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah. It's like almost like a spirit of the forest kind of thing. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's just insane. It's like that is a tree monitor and you are in the wild, so that is a wild tree monitor. It's insane, really.
Yeah, one day, man, one day.
That one on the left there is where we found the peach throat sort of hanging about, so it's a lot more open if you can see.
Here.
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
So, that sort of area. There was a lot of sunlight coming through there, so they're sort of probably doing the same thing as the tree monitors, but they're coming right down to the ground and foraging on the ground a lot more, rather than staying sort of in the canopy area.
Imagine they'd be picking off them crabs.
Yeah, definitely. Then those crabs are literally everywhere. There was as many crabs as there was millipedes.
That's actually quite interesting to know that. No, even inland, there's crabs everywhere.
And crabs, yeah. There is another Macraei on that left-hand picture, if you can see him in the middle. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I can't even imagine trying to spot them in the wild.
Yeah, it's insane. I don't know how they're just so in tune with the with the rainforest and the jungle, it's just unbelievable. They literally see any sort of movement and they're just honed on. I can find them for a little bit and then they'll move and I've just lost them again.
Yeah.
That's another jackfruit tree, and that's obviously in the Macraei now.
Yeah, you can see it like they get quite far up the trees.
Yeah, like I said, that's one of the smaller trees. Again, that's probably one of the smallest trees there. You can see at the end, obviously, his pole. If you go up, that's the tree monitor there. Yeah. So yeah, like really open again. Open. It's got all that sunlight that you can see on the left-hand side there, and he was literally. That's one of the ones we watched for a little bit, and you could just see him sort of mooching through the smaller branches.
Let's see if there's any comments. No questions or comments yet. If any questions or comments, guys, I am flicking between, so drop them in.
So that's the one that we were just seeing noosed. That's Nerdin on the left-hand side with that lizard. This is the one of the ones that someone said was like the greenback type of one. It doesn't show it too much in that picture, but they got like the bigger ocelli almost. It's like a different look. These ones were from northern Batanta. Like I said, I don't know if they're all like that over there. So I don't want anyone quoting and trying to do like a sales pitch that these are now northern Batantan tree monitors because they got bigger spots. But like I said, that is something I noticed a little bit.
That one looks pretty lean.
Yes, yeah. This was the second one I was talking about with that sort of look where they were finding it obviously a bit harder, the sunken in tail base. But those two pictures there are pretty much what made the trip for me. I was just so impressed when I managed to get those shots. They're the ones that sort of make me most proud of the pose shots.
Yeah, no, that's a sick photo for sure, man. And they are a bit grainy, obviously coming through, like because I'm zoomed in on the thing. I've been through them all. Like I said,
they look a bit better on Instagram, and hopefully we'll get them on the website for it's like super high quality. And then these are just a couple of in situ ones. I don't know if you can be able to spot them. That one left, that one on the right, you can sort of see the silhouette of one again. That's it, yeah.
I'm trying to zoom in. My laptop won't let me. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm struggling to see it. I can't lie to you. Is it in the middle?
You were literally on it. If you, you're on it now, yeah.
Let me turn my brightness up on my laptop. Where's the brightness button? That one. Oh God, I'm on full brightness. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty rubbish picture anyway. It's cool that it's in situ, but yeah, my camera was just playing up so much. I'm super lucky that I actually got any pictures out of it in the end. And I just seen one of the comments about a new camera, better weather sealing. Yeah, this one was a really old camera. It's a 70D. And yeah, I don't think it had any weather sealing or very, very poor. It went around Australia fine for sort of 5 years and then gave up the ghost as soon as it got a bit of humidity.
Are you getting is it the P1000 or whatever it's called?
I looked into it. Super good for zoom, but not very good in low light conditions. I mean, the zoom on it is absolutely insane, like we've seen on the AH meeting. But yeah, for low light, the canopy, it just doesn't sort of hold up. So I just bought a newer Canon. Can't remember what I got now. It's a mirrorless one. 8D or something like that. Yeah, it's one of the newer mirrors.
I was looking at the 90D because apparently that one's like quote unquote web.
It's an R6. Sorry, that's what it is. I looked at so many cameras. It was like, but yeah, so and it's an R6, a mirrorless one, which is a bit different to take photos with, but sort of trying to get used to it over here before I get over there again.
Yeah. Just going out and taking casual pictures of smooth snakes.
Yeah. That's that jackfruit I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So it's like that spiky. I think I could be wrong. I think it's called durian as well. I could be wrong on that. I've seen it sold. It absolutely stinks when they open it up. But it could be a different one. I could be wrong with that. But yeah, it's definitely called jackfruit is what they were calling it.
Yeah, that's I've heard of it and heard how much they smell.
Oh yeah, it literally. I can't. If there's a shop selling it in like Bali or something, I can't be anywhere near it. It literally makes me heave. These are pretty cool. When the camera was working a bit better and the lighting conditions were a bit better. This was the big male I was talking about. Just in, like I said, that was a big lizard, probably 3 foot. And look at the size of those branches; they're just absolutely tiny. Again, in those smaller trees where you get that sunlight. I think he was actually actively hunting for like grasshoppers and katydids before we caught it. But we let this one. I got some video of him sort of mooching around in the treetops, completely unfussed that we were there all around the tree looking at him, which was pretty cool.
I just today, similar leaves, basically. I think it was from a chestnut tree, but I just snapped a load of branches off and I've just stuck them in the ground with my mangrove enclosure, and she's just spent the whole day walking around like just smelling the branches. Just
anything you add like that, they seem to just love. I put that. I got that video on my Instagram of that rising Macraei just rubbing himself up and down on that plant that I put in there.
Yeah, it's so strange they do that. Like, my indicus does that. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't get why they. It must be just like scent marking or something. But...
Was it your male doing it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's obviously I have a female doing it, but obviously I'm not saying they don't scent mark, but yeah, it's interesting behaviours. It's cool that they're on these tiny little sticky branches.
Yeah. Like I said, right to the end of these branches. I'm guessing that's where the insects are going to be. They're not going to be by the tree trunk too much. They're going to be probably basking themselves, a bit like our grasshoppers do over here, like the long grass. And like I said, it's just amazing. It's a pretty hefty tree monitor, that one was. That was the biggest one we caught. You can see it sort of sees the size of it there, even though it's sort of zoomed in from ages away. But yeah, pretty impressive how far out they go on the trees.
Yeah, that is pretty. Like that to me is like idyllic. How they're just like meandering their way through these like tiny little twiggy branches.
Yeah, like I said, he was a big, impressive male. He must have been an old guy. He was quite dark. That was going back again towards Amdui, where it's more like a typical one. It's not those ones with the biggest ocelli. So this is more like what we used to get in going back. Not to say they don't come from there anymore. They're just being collected a bit less there.
Yeah.
That one on the left is probably one of my favourite ones, where he's sort of in motion walking through the treetops.
I really quite like this one. Like being almost silhouetted. Yeah, I quite like that one. I think it's a cool picture.
I've invested in a better zoom lens this time as well, because that was on just a 70 to 200. I've gone up to I think it's a 400 or a 600 now.
Oh, so
it should be a bit better.
If you can control it better than I can control a laptop, then you're
so that is the lizard. So that's the again, you can see on the left, I just took that one. That is how much humidity the camera was dealing with. You can just see why it wrecked it in an older camera. It would just steam up the lenses, which I haven't really had to deal with that before. I'm going to have to think a bit more in the future about keeping stuff in sealer bags with silica gel or something like that. And then that one on the right is that lizard we saw on the treetop. So it's like a big old male, very dark.
You can see how big he is on the left.
Yeah,
he's a beast. That's a cool photo on the left. Oh, Indicus, even better on the right.
We're getting to both. I think both of those are Indicus, possibly.
Is that Indicus? Yeah, there you go. I knew from the start.
Yeah. So all these, we didn't find any Indicus in Batanta. This was all in Waigeo. So these are all going to be Waigeo sort of locality Indicus. I don't know if they changed too much between Batanta.
You've got a video on your Instagram, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, there's loads on the Instagram. If you scroll back a bit.
I think Waigeo. I say Waigeo, but is it I before the A? Either way, I'm illiterate.
Waigeo. I literally spoke to Nerdin yesterday and got him to send me a voice message, because I've been saying Waigeo, and I was like, I can't be going on a podcast. Yeah, I can't be going on a podcast and getting that wrong. So he's like,
work. Just remember, it's not the way goes from work. It's the
yes, I think that's where it's come from, actually. Yeah, Waigeo.
So I do think the problem is with Indicus, they change so much, even on the same island. Like, it's impossible. Oh wow, here we go. Indicus and katydids. I need to start breeding these.
Yeah, I tried, not that species. I found them really hard, but I'm not an insect guy. I think you need to keep them quite clean. I know Julian, I think, had quite a big success with them.
Yeah, I've spoken to him about it, and I've spoken to Ben about it. I had some. I got like 20 nymphs, and my room on that day where it peaked at like 30 odd degrees. I lost 3 cockroach colonies. I lost my deaf heads, my orange heads, and there was another species that I lost. And I lost my jungle nymphs, stick insects, and katydids all in like one day.
Yeah, they're extremely temperamental. I've kept like a lot of spiders and stuff, but it seems they don't have like the same parameters as reptiles. It seems once you get too humid, too hot, it's just game over.
Yeah, mine died real quick. They didn't make it. That Indicus is stunning though, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
So these were all on one stretch of the river when we were going looking for Bomai. There was like just mangroves either side with these branches going over. And I can't remember how many we saw. We saw a lot of them, 10 plus, all of different sizes. We found some juveniles as well. But pretty much all of them were on these overhanging branches, overhanging this small sort of river. That's one of those, like I said, the giant Malaysian katydid. I can't remember the Latin on them now.
Oh, thank you, Al, for the next super chat. Do the hunters catch any blues or put back some? I think you said that they released all of the ones that you caught, didn't they?
Yeah. So typically anything they catch, they're going to keep and take back, and that's going to be exported to the pet trade. And then all the ones we caught, we released them. And then I just paid them the price of what they would get for the lizard, so they weren't losing out.
And so basically, I think what he's asking is, if you catch a really old one, would they still keep it?
Yeah, anything, unfortunately. If they catch it, they're taking it, basically. I mean, that's the other interesting thing I haven't brought up, was the only pretty pressure on the Macraei is for the pet trade. I don't know many other lizards. I'm sure there is quite a few, like the Williams eye blue geckos and stuff like that. That it is the pet trade that's fueling them taken from the wild. So apart from habitat destruction, that is the main pressure. So you can see why people are trying to conserve them, and we need to sort of put more of an effort into reducing that wild caught. I mean, you've literally got the option now of getting captive bred babies in the UK, Europe, and America. So you should really be looking at getting those captive bred babies before even going anywhere near wild caught ones. We pretty much, in my opinion, don't need to be taking. We definitely don't need to be taking as many from the wild, and if at all. So
were they quite flighty, or were they not too bad? Obviously, you're a distance away.
Yeah, we were in a boat literally right under them. Some of them would literally just stay there, and then a few would sort of slink off more into the forested areas. But then we come back on the boat, coming past the same tree, and they'd be back out basking. So they weren't too fussed. But those indicas acted more like a lot of wild monitors do, like the ones I've seen in Australia. Well, they'll see you, either freeze or run off, and then come back. You can go back 20, 30 minutes later, and they're back to sort of the same sort of basking areas. I think the indicas, because they're probably a bigger animal, have got to warm up a lot more than the tree monitors have. So they're sort of stuck having to bask a lot more than the tree monitors seem to.
I think they probably run slightly hotter as well. So
yeah, for sure.
Even more, yeah.
So that's a baby one on my left. Or go to the left a bit more with your cursor. There you go. So that's just a juvenile indicus there. We saw a couple of babies. They were actually always right around the water, the ones we saw anyway, in that sort of area. As you can see, that's the river behind it. And they were all sort of searching for food, where the adults just obviously were out basking. They need to get the temperatures up a lot higher than obviously the juveniles do.
Yeah. It's a sick photo.
Yeah, that one on the right is probably one of the best ones that I didn't take. I didn't even know he was taking the picture, which is really a real nice surprise when he sent them. That's our captain of the boat, Aoi, took that one on his phone. It just captures the moment pretty well of the whole trip, really.
Yeah, it's nice to look back on. Obviously, it's nice to look back on photos you've taken. Oh, there you go. We're at the end. Yeah. It's nice to look back on photos that obviously you've taken, but like that encapsulates what you've come to do. Sort of thing.
Yeah, usually Alicia's there taking those sort of shots on her phone when she's bored, sat on some rocks in Australia. So I was pretty happy when I had someone else taking those sort of shots. Like I said, they sort of capture the moment so well. With the hunters probably thinking, "What is this guy doing?" And then sort of the nerding and the Macraei there.
thank you for the amazing trip. It looks like it was an amazing trip. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. Thank you for the super dragons. We are encroaching in the 3-hour mark, and normally I ask people if there's a time limit before, and I haven't asked you. So, is there a time limit for yourself? Because obviously we're on the same time.
Yeah, we should probably wrap it up. I've got Alicia next door. She's got work in the morning. I've got work in the morning. So
no, it's fine.
I'll come. Yeah, we can't do a 4 or 5. We're not going to break any records on your 4 or 5 hour podcast. Well, hopefully it was good content anyway for you guys. Like I said, it'd be nice to come back on and do the Australia stuff. There's loads more of that.
You didn't find Hemi, did you?
No comment.
Okay. Any final questions now, everybody? Drop them in because we are going to start wrapping up. But yeah, mate, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I really appreciate like spending the time with me because I know, like you say, you've got to be up early and keep the missus up, and I'm keeping my missus up. So
yeah, well, like you said, I was super nervous before coming on, and then once you start talking about lizards, it goes quick, doesn't it? So
yeah, don't worry, guys. We're gonna get Chris back on. We'll do at least we'll put it to the ethos now. Round 2, Herping Australia. Round 3, keeping captives.
Yeah, we didn't even touch on any of that. That would be like I said, a whole nother podcast. We managed not to talk too much about Macraei, which probably you're itching to ask, but yeah, we'll come back and do that one for sure.
Mate, I'll be 100% honest with you, right? And this is public, so I can't even go back on it. I don't know what I want more, Macraei or Macraei. I just don't know what I want more.
Yeah, they're super hard to put against each other as well because they're both extremely awesome. Then they just do. Like the black tree monitors are so underrated. It's ridiculous. They've got totally different personalities. Obviously, if you're not into black, they're not as pretty as as some of the other ones, but they do act completely differently. They've all got their own nuances. They are sort of similar in their own ways, but the blacks are a bit different. And then the Macraei are like unlike anything else I've ever kept. They're nothing like any ordinary because you've got that aquatic sort of side in a small monitor. It's pretty cool. It's a hard decision. Yeah, it's a super hard decision.
Like, my favourite colours of animals are in order: black, then green. So Macraei, Prasinus. Obviously, my dear friend Matt and your friend Matt. He's collecting all the tree monitors as well as Macraei. So when I went to his place, last time I went to his place, not the time I just went, the time before, I was like, oh my god, the black trees, oh my god, the black trees. And this time I went recently, I was like, oh my god, forget the black trees, Macraei.
Yeah, it's like I said, they're just totally different ends of the spectrum. They're just totally different lizards, really. I don't know how you pick between them. You got to get them both, I suppose.
Mate, the problem is if I get both, I've got to get rid of mangroves.
You got enough of those?
I've already said to myself, basically, long story short, if I get one or the other, a mangrove has to go because I haven't got space for everything. Quick question. Good change, Michael. Do you use the island names?
A few reasons. It's to educate people because a lot of people these days. Some people these days don't even realize where these lizards come from, so it's sort of like a sign of respect to give them their sort of island names. And I remember when yellow tree monitors were discovered, there was a Melanus out at the same time, and people were getting the two confused. So if you say it's a Mizzle Island, it gives people a bit of education of where these things are actually from, and then it doesn't confuse it with other lizards as well. So yeah, and I think some of it sounds cooler. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're the only person I've seen doing it, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I think it's like a sign of respect almost because I've been over there to give them their not just the guys that have described them, which is cool in its own way, but give them their sort of actual home names.
Yeah, amazing podcast, guys. Worth the wait. Round 2 will be soon. Didn't seem nervous at all. Good job. Never even spoke about Macraei. We had a little bit of Macraei at the end. So any more final questions, drop them in, but we're going to start with the wrap-up questions. And again, thank you, mate. I really do appreciate you.
Yeah, no worries. I really enjoyed it, actually. Considering how nervous I was and telling everyone how nervous I was, it's been good.
I told you, man. Like, literally everyone, like, I don't just say it. Everyone sort of says, like, oh, my God. Because, like, no one does this sort of stuff in the sense of, like, obviously I put myself on YouTube, but you don't. So doing it, you're like, oh, my God. Because I remember when I did the first one, I was like, I did my first personal podcast. I was like, oh, my God, I'm so nervous. And I feel. So, yeah, I get it. But for the most part, the community I'm building is pretty cool. as well as it's just you and me talking lizards. And to be fair, half of it we didn't even see our faces, so it's win-win.
I'm going to be gutted about this one next week because I listen to your one every week, and now I'm going to be a podcast down for my journeys in the van. So.
Yeah, sorry about that. Soon come though. You won't have to have it on YouTube. Soon come. It'll be soon once I get all the pre-approvals. But right, would a wild planning event be good for ecotourism? Would a wild planning event be good for ecotourism? Sort where plant and reptile fans can use their scaling skills for terrariums, but in wild instead of terrariums. I mean, I butchered that. One, I'm tired, and two, I can't.
Wild planting event. So I'm guessing planting stuff in the wild. Plant and reptile user. I don't understand.
Maybe like you're building terrariums, but like you go and build a terrarium like from the wild, and you have like this escaping terrarium like day out. I mean, I think there's loads of stuff that can be done for. I think I need to find a good guest for ecotourism because I'll be completely honest, I'm not educated enough on it to comment. But I think it's an interesting point, and I do think we as a generation and a species need to do better at conserving the wild in any which way possible, because we take it for granted, like we've done in species, and it's there, and all of a sudden our grandkids don't have a tree. So
yeah,
that hasn't answered your question, but yeah. Anyway, right, remember the questions. Okay, what is your one piece of advice that you would give to someone just starting the reptile hobby?
I think do your research, but also learn how to research. I mean, back when I started, it was literally books and scientific papers. Now there's so much content. It's being able to search through that content, find what's good, compare it to other bits, make your own decision, but also enjoy that research. I mean, half the things I've thought about keeping, I've researched for months and months and months. I've got my fix that way, and then never actually kept keeping. Those Candoya boas are an example. I've researched them to death. I've come so close to buying them, and then actually felt quite content by just doing the research. Like I said, there's an art to doing research as well, and it's probably harder than it's ever been now to weed through sort of the bushes and find good research. Like I said, it was just books, scientific papers, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I would read stuff from page to page, every word, over and over and over again until it went in, and then I'd ask people questions where you've got a bit more of an understanding. I mean, you get annoyed with it with the Instagram sort of questions you're getting. If they had a bit more of a substance to them, you'd probably find it more enjoyable to answer, and they'd get more of a perspective of what's good information. Like I said, it's super hard at the moment with just the amount of content that's going out there, but you can pick through it, back that up with scientific research and papers, and then sort of make your own decision. And it's I find it extremely fun. It literally you can research something so much that you're like, I'm actually quite content. I don't even want to keep them now. I've learned loads of stuff about these lizards, snakes, whatever it is. I'm content. I know a lot about them. I'll just leave it at that.
So yeah, boom, tree agrees. Researching an animal until the urge goes away is work for him. It doesn't work for me because I can't read, so I have to just go and buy them. And I will just touch on this quickly. There is I think that's a great idea. There is a terrarium scaping day. I don't know if it's inside, outside, near me that Fee told me about, and I was like, oh yeah, that seems like a good idea. So I think that could be a good idea. Now I need to get Julian and Dawn.
I'm trying. I've been trying. I've been speaking to Dawn pretty much all day today and said, I've done it now. I'm going to do it now. So your turn's next. And I'll even hold your hand if you're going to come on. And then, yeah.
We can do a three-way one for sure.
Yeah,
we can speak about cat, because she keeps similar tree monitor species to you, if I'm correct. Yes.
Yeah, she's got an awesome collection that I'll let her talk about when she comes on. So leave that.
Yeah, we can do a round table and we can talk about breeding tree monitors and keeping.
She literally lives 5 minutes up the road, so she's got no excuse. She can literally come here and sit there if she needs to. So,
there we go then, even better.
Yeah, I think Julian's got a lot.
Talks with Julian. So the Julian one will happen. Just we just need to make the time work. So I am in speaks with him. There was one other question which I forgot. Oh yeah, I do want to ask this one because it's something that was on my mind and I forgot to ask it because it's personally, as you know, as a listener, will always be on my mind. So now seeing them in the wild, has it changed your mind on captivity?
Yeah, this is a really good one actually. That first trip to Australia, I come back and I've never not had any reptiles at all from the age of 8. But coming back from that one, I was only keeping snakes at that time, and a really small collection, like a few Antresia pythons, and a couple of carpets or something like that. And I come so close to just getting rid of absolutely everything and then just say, right, all I'm going to do now is go on herping trips. I don't need it. It filled that passion so much, but I was burnt out from the shop at that point. So the captive side of things had sort of slowed down, and I was getting frustrated with it. Hence why, like I said, you sort of get a burnout at that time. So the trip invigorated it, but from like a different aspect. You do feel guilty when you see this stuff in the wild, and there's no way of getting around that. But unfortunately, I can't go on trips every single week or every single weekend. So it does feel that itch, need, whatever you want to call it, while I'm not on the trips. But I keep a really small collection now. And like I said, it's worth getting over there if you can do it. It will change your opinion on stuff for sure.
Yeah, I'll be 100% honest. And again, you'll know where my brain is if you listen to my podcast. If I see a mangrove in the wild, I don't think I'd want to keep them. I'm going to get over it.
The first time for sure, you might come back and just be like, that was such an amazing buzz experience that why are we keeping them in captivity? But if you're a proper reptile addict, like most of us probably listening are, it will creep back in. I mean, I went a good while with keeping like literally a few snakes, and then slowly but surely, especially with COVID and stuff, it sort of creeped back in. And now it's sort of, I just want to keep a small collection and then just keep going on the trips sort of every year.
Yeah, and we need to kidnap Dawn. So soon come. I think that's it. Right, final question then. One piece of advice you would like to leave with the people watching now?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's usually the kids.
It's gonna be morbid, yeah, but I don't think you've got kids.
No, I haven't. Yeah, not yet. That's really good. Mine's gonna be really cliche and really obvious. It's travel. Like, no matter if it's to Indonesia, if it's anywhere, wherever you are, just travel. Get out of your own village, your own town, and go experience something new. There's no money better spent. Forget about the next reptile you want, the next morph you want, the next lizard. Put that money aside and decide to go traveling. It can be as far away or as close as you want, but there won't be money better spent than that. And that's it, really. Obvious, but
at me, mate. I want to do traveling so bad. Like, one of my best friends traveled the whole of Asia and Australia, and he's not into animals, but and then another one of my friends has just come back from all of Asia, and he went to Komodo, and again, not even into animals. I was like, you don't even know the majesty of what you've seen. He was like, I'll bring you some dirt back from Komodo. I was like, yeah, please do. Yeah, traveling for me.
Yeah, like I said, it seems hard and daunting. That first trip to Australia was like, oh my God, we're actually doing it. Can it be done? And you'll talk yourself out of it way more. The best advice I can do is get some money together and book that flight. Once that flight's booked, you will make it happen. And like I said, they don't have to be extravagant. I've gone pretty far and wide, but like even just trips to like Europe, even in your own country, if you just go, if you're into reptiles or whatever, we've got 6 native species. Go and try find some of them. You will learn something that you can take back to captivity. You'll enjoy it, and it'll be money well spent.
Yeah, I'm 11 of the 12 native herps.
Nice.
Just need that smooth, mate. Just need that smooth.
Oh yeah, is it? Okay.
I found all the native amphibians. I found all the native reptiles in the wild. I found every single one.
Have you done the non-natives yet or not? Have you got those around by you? Got wall lizards?
We've got a couple. We've got wall lizards. We've got marsh frogs. Escalapians are obviously in London.
That's the one I want to go and look for next. That's the next.
That's right by London Zoo. There's a wall by London Zoo. Yeah.
So take that one off.
And I want to go and find the scorpions in Isle of Sheppey as well.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Haven't done
that. If you haven't been out looking and you're interested in it, it's a good way to start. Just go and try and find R6. I mean, seeing the first reptile in England in the wild will change how you feel about stuff, and it's a good experience. And like I said, if it's the choice of sometimes traveling or buying that next lizard, sometimes it's better, pretty much all the time is better to do that travel if you can, make it happen. Don't make excuses about it. Put the money aside, get going, and it'll be amazing.
I'm quite fortunate in the sense I'm building relationships with people all around the world now. So when I go to Australia, I'm just sleeping on Freezy's garden. So
yeah, 100%.
Crazy. Yeah. But yeah. So
I mean, if you want one to go to, it's Australia for 100%. Herping is just unreal. There's nothing better. It's good herping, good species, and fairly easy. And there's not that culture shock as much for us guys from England. So it makes it quite easy in that sense. Drive on the same side of the road as us, all that sort of stuff. No language barrier. So yeah, just get over there.
Yeah, man. I'm off to it's not booked, but it's happening. I'm off to Ham just for the reptile show for the very first time ever next year. Yeah. I'm gonna go next year. I'm saving for it now, so I'm going probably September because I've been told that's the show to go to.
Yeah, I can't remember. We used to go every sort of 3 months for the shop when you could bring stuff back. Ham's. I mean, if you haven't been, it's crazy place. What you see again, that's a good trip. You'll remember that one, and that's fairly cheap, fairly easy to do. Just people are so easy. Not easy. People just stay in their own comfort zone so much, whether that's your own town, village, city, whatever it is, and it's just a good experience to get out of the same old thing.
Yeah, well. We'll leave it at that because we're coaching in late, and both of us have got to be up early o'clock to work that boring day jobs to enable us to have money. And I'm ignoring Fee's comment saying saving.
Yeah, easier said than done that part for sure.
Mate, I haven't got any spare money at the minute. But yeah, thank you. Soon, mate. Wow. Yeah, I may or may not be, depending how many I have and depending how many sell, I may or may not be spending that on a lizard with certain somebody. But we'll see what happens. We'll have to see what happens. No, we don't know yet, guys. We don't know yet. We'll see what the economy is like when the time comes. But we'll leave it at that. But yeah, thank you for coming on, mate. I really appreciate it. I know
really enjoyed it. And thank everyone in the chat.
Yeah, no, it's been honestly, it's been really good. I'm glad now that because obviously we've known of each other, but we started building our relationship in like March time or whenever it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously we're speaking virtually and we speak now and then on DMs, but I'm looking forward to seeing you again either at AHH or
you're doing Doncaster now in September.
Yeah, well, we're isn't it?
Yeah. It's a bit further for you, I think, but.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I'm meet up there then.
Yeah, I'm staying up. So basically, might find my first smooth snake. So the day before, the Saturday, me and Fia going on an organised reptile walk on South Down. Did you see? Oh, fucking, what's his name? Aiden, kid down my way. He found some smooth snakes in the box. Yeah. So basically, where he found them, there's an organised reptile walk for Tim flipping. And me and Fia going on that. So it won't technically be me finding it, but it might be my first snake in the wild. I've seen them, but like, you get like the native reptile amphibian societies, they have the captive bred ones. I've seen them. I've handled one of the captive bred ones, but I've never seen one in the wild. So I might be finding my first smooth snake. And then I'm driving up, staying the night, and then obviously be my first ever proper reptile show all in one weekend. So it could be a good weekend. But yes, I will be coming.
Sweet, we'll definitely meet up then.
It'll be good to catch up and link up. Don't tell anyone, Fee, because they're licensed and protected, but we definitely won't go and find them afterwards. But yeah, I am valuing our friendship that we're starting to build, man, and it's nice that the monitor keepers of the UK are all starting to sort of connect through the love and power of social media. And it's quite nice that we're all sort of building this, not distant like a strange, but like we're all there and we all know each other, and we can all tap into each other. And that I'm really sort of like happy that that's happening, because I didn't know the landscape. And now as I'm sort of trying to become somebody, it's quite nice to get to know people like yourself and Julian and Dawn and Ben.
Yeah. I think I said to you before, I don't think I've ever known it be such a good feeling community before. Everyone back when I first started keeping was just so secretive about it. It just wasn't the norm anyway. And then you might speak to someone else that worked with the same species. It was pretty insular, basically. But now the community that we're sort of building between us, and everyone's sort of helping everyone out. It's really good.
Yeah, it is, mate. It is. And I don't think I've told you actually. I'll share it with you once. I didn't explain, but I'll click end broadcast and then it'll go dead. And then I'll share with you some news that no one knows. There's like 5 people in the country that know, so I'll share it with you. Tease everybody else. But yeah, so like I say, thank you, mate. I know you were nervous, so thank you for coming on. And I'm buzzing. Clearly a wealth of knowledge, and because I didn't really know your background, and just listening to you talk, you can really tell how passionate you are, and it gives me like goosebumps listening to people talk about it, how passionate they are. Because I'm like, oh my god, yeah, that was like me as a kid, and it sounds like you've really been immersed in it since really young.
Like I said, I've been super lucky, like having all those mentors when I was younger, and it just all sort of fell into place. Just been lucky, but yeah, it's a good hobby to have. We should all sort of work together. It's just so much drama sometimes. Try and steer away from that, and then realize while we all do this, we're all just geeks at the end of the day. The lizards, reptiles, and all the rest of it. So it's better if we sort of work together on it. Steer away from the drama.
Oh, well, I said to someone recently, because I've had my own drama, which I'm not going to go into because I have no interest, but I did have my own drama recently, and I said to somebody, I was like, for me, it doesn't matter when you got the lizards, where you got the lizards, how you got your lizards or snakes. It just matters why. And at the end of the day, as long as you're getting them for the right reasons and you're passionate about these lizards, that's all that we all care about. We care. We don't care like how you got the money to, like me, credit card debt to get big mangrove enclosures. No one cares. I'm just passionate about mangroves. You know what I mean? That's all people care about. So I think it is growing and it is going the right way. And I think the hobby in the next couple of years will be a nice place to be, I think.
Yeah, 100%. It's nice to have this as a UK sort of representation. I listen to podcasts all day long, all the reptile ones, and the American ones are fantastic. But it's nice to have a UK one. So fair play for starting that one.
Yeah, it's been a long journey, and like yesterday, day before, I had no guests booked for August. I've got names floated around. I just have no, and obviously next week is August. But yeah, just like that, 2 guests already booked. So. It's going strong. And worst case, I just come on here solo and waffle, and then
thanks for doing that. That's something I don't think I'll be able to do just yet.
But yeah, credit card debt for Zingari and Mitch are like, oh, my credit card isn't giving enough. My credit card's already maxed out. But anyway, guys, thank you all for tuning in. Chris's links, Instagram and website are in the description. First links in the description. Please go and check him out. He produces great content on Instagram. He's got an incredible collection, and if you want Mitchellite porn, then go down there. Don't give him ideas. I haven't got a credit card. I'll apply for another one right now. But yeah, any final words before we end this, Chris?
I think we've covered it, mate. Yeah, I'm super happy that people tuned in. Hopefully, other people can watch it later and enjoy it. So yeah, looking forward to that. This was
my second most viewed live ever. Me and Will had slightly more, but it's a bit different because obviously we've got the YouTube community.
Super famous.
Yeah, both super famous. Nearly 30,000 on Instagram. Chat to me. But yeah, we had like 36 at one point. So just a testament to yourself, because obviously they're not here for me; they're here for you. So fair play to you. You're clearly making waves and ripples, whether you like it or not. But yeah, right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back next week with a guest that is or isn't confirmed at the moment. And check Chris out in the link below. And that's about it, really. So I love you all, and we are out.